Most people remember regular show wrong, not the details. The details they get right. The blue jay, the raccoon, the park, the gumball machine, the immortal Yeti, death as a recurring character, the magical keyboard, Benson going red, the those details people remember. What people get wrong is the shape of the show, the arc of it, the way it moved across 8 seasons from something charming and strange into something genuinely extraordinary. Ask most people which seasons of regular show are the best, and you'll hear some variation of the same answer. Seasons 2 and 3 are the peak. Season 1 is where they found the voice. And the later stuff is fine, but doesn't have the same energy. The space season is weird. The mythology stuff is a lot. The magic of the early days. 2 idiots causing supernatural disasters over nothing never quite gets recaptured. Here's my problem with that take. It's completely backwards. Regular show gets better every single season, not in a straight, consistent line. There are wobbles, there are detours. There are seasons where specific things are excellent and other things are falling apart. But the trajectory is upward, unmistakably, structurally, thematically upward. And the reason most people don't see it is that the things the show gets better at are the things you can only appreciate if you're paying close enough attention. Tonight, we're going through all 8 seasons, every one of them. And I want to show you exactly how this show grows, what gets added, what gets refined, what gets risked, what pays off. I want to trace the line from The Power in 2010 to a regular epic final battle in 2017, and show you that those 2 things are not a beginning and an end. They're a seed and a flower. The same idea, 7 years older, which is a completely different thing. So if you're up late and you need something to keep you company, you've come to the right place. Get comfortable. This is a long one, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It genuinely helps us make more of these. Let's go back to where it all started. Season 1, 12 episodes, September 6th to November 22nd, 2010. The show premieres on Cartoon Network with The Power, pulls 2.097 million viewers on its first night, and immediately establishes that it is unlike anything else currently airing for children. Here's what Season 1 is. It's a proof of concept, a demonstration, a calling card that says, this voice exists, this sensibility exists, this combination of the mundane and the supernatural in service of emotional comedy exists. Season 1 is J.G. Quintel showing you the thing he built in his head across years of CalArts student films and work on the marvelous misadventures of Flapjack and Camp Lazlo. The specific flavor of escalation, the rhythm of the double act, the way you can take 2 completely ordinary slackers and make the universe bend around their avoidance. And the first 12 episodes, including Just Set Up the Chairs, Death Punchies, Free Cake, Prank Callers, and the season finale, Mordecai and the Rigby's, are all standalone. No through lines, no mythology, no arc. Just, here is the situation, here is the escalation, here is the resolution. The show is 12 episodes of Quintel and his team figuring out what the show is. And what they figure out is remarkable. The escalation formula is essentially perfected in the first season. The double act between Mordecai and Rigby, the dynamic of the reluctant responsible one and the fully irresponsible one, is established immediately. The voice cast is locked in. Quintel as Mordecai, William Salyers as Rigby, Sam Marin as Benson, and Pops and Muscle Man, Mark Hamill as Skips. The group recording session, everyone in the room together, real responses to real performances. Give the dialogue a naturalness that sets the show apart from almost every other animated series of the period. But Season 1 has a ceiling. And I think it's important to be honest about where that ceiling is, because it's the thing that makes the rest of the trajectory readable. The ceiling is this. Season 1 is about the formula more than the character. The situations are the point. The characters are the delivery mechanism. Mordecai wants to impress Margaret. She appears twice and is not yet a real character, just a motivation. Rigby is chaotic and selfish, and the episodes use that without interrogating it. Benson yells. Skips fixes things. Pops is bewildered. Muscle Man makes "my mom" jokes. The ensemble is defined by function rather than by interiority. None of this is a criticism exactly. Season 1 of most great shows is primarily about establishing function. You have to know what the machine does before you can understand why it does it. Regular show's first 12 episodes are exceptional at establishing what the machine does. The question is, what happens when the show starts asking why. Death Punchies is Season 2, Episode 1, and the upgrade is immediate and visible. Rigby learning a death move and using it on Mordecai, actually using it, sending his best friend to the hospital, and then the supernatural escalation into a Punchies death tournament, and then Mordecai choosing not to use the killing blow even when he can, because killing Rigby is not something he's capable of. That sequence is the show doing something Season 1 never did. And it's using the formula to reveal something true about who these people are to each other. The supernatural stakes are the test. The friendship is what gets revealed. Season 2 runs from November 2010 to August 2011, 28 episodes. And it's where the show finds its emotional vocabulary, not its premise. The premise is fully established in Season 1. It's vocabulary. The difference between having a thing to say and knowing how to say it. The improvements in Season 2 are everywhere, and they compound. The escalation formula becomes more inventive. The situations are stranger. The solutions more creative. The internal logic more rigorously maintained. Hello Governor, the season premiere, is the show riffing on British horror films in a way that wouldn't have made sense in Season 1. Because the show wasn't yet sure enough of its own voice to do genre parody. By Season 2, it knows what it is, and it's able to play with what it is. Its time is Season 2, Episode 5. And I want to spend a moment on this one because I think it's where the show first reveals that it's capable of being something other than comedy. Mordecai, desperate to impress Margaret, uses a time machine to manipulate the evening, and ends up killing Rigby multiple times in increasingly absurd ways across different versions of the timeline. The episode is very funny, and it's also genuinely uncomfortable, because what Mordecai is doing, using a temporal technology to force a romantic outcome, is a form of obsession that the show names clearly. He's so desperate for the thing he wants that he keeps iterating on it until someone dies. The comedy sits right on top of something that isn't funny at all, and the show holds both. This Is My Jam gives us the earworm episode. Rigby trapped with a terrible song in his head that becomes a monster, and it's the first episode to produce an original song that people still reference. Summertime Loving, Loving in the Summer, Time, written by staff member Sean Sealis, is deliberately terrible and completely unforgettable, which is itself a creative achievement. The show understanding that a song that drives you insane and a song that sticks in your head are the same thing. That's a specific insight. And the episode builds its entire supernatural premise on that insight. Over the Top is Season 2, Episode 21. In the Sylvester Stallone arm wrestling parody, Skips accidentally kills Rigby and has to challenge death to get him back. And this episode is where Mark Hamill's casting pays off most specifically, because Skips in Over the Top is an emotional performance disguised as a comedy performance. The urgency with which Skips responds to Rigby's death, the immediate, no deliberation action, is the episode showing us that Skips' casualness about everything else is not detachment. It's efficiency. He has learned to be efficient because he cannot afford to be slow. Because being slow, in Skips' experience, means losing people. And he has already lost enough people. Then that depth of character, the idea that what looks like calm competence from the outside is a coping mechanism that developed over centuries, is not something the show would have gone for in Season 1. Season 2 is the show deciding it can go there. The other major addition in Season 2, the show starts giving its supporting cast their own lives. Muscle Man gets Muscle Woman, the episode where we meet Starla. And suddenly Muscle Man is a person in a relationship rather than a walking punchline. High Five Ghost gets minimal development, but more present. Pops starts to feel like a specific person rather than a comedic device. The world of the park, which in Season 1 was largely a backdrop for Mordecai and Rigby's antic, becomes a populated place where multiple kinds of story can happen. Season 2 ends on a high. Viewership is solid. The audience is finding the show. Season 3 is about to begin. And Season 3 is where the show does something genuinely important. Season 3, 39 episodes, September 2011 to September 2012. This is the longest season the show produced, and it's the season that, and I will die on this hill, is responsible for every great thing the show does afterward. Here's what Season 3 adds that the first 2 seasons didn't have: backstory and continuity. Before Season 3, the show is almost entirely episodic. Episodes reference each other occasionally, but the world doesn't accumulate. There's no weight of history, no sense that what happened in Episode 17 matters to what happens in Episode 30. Regular show in Seasons 1 and 2 is a series of presents, not a timeline. And Season 3 makes the show a timeline. Stick Hockey opens the season and immediately pays off something that's been background furniture since Season 1. Benson used to be good at something, used to have a thing. The stick hockey table is the artifact of that. And when it gets threatened, we're suddenly in an episode about Benson's identity, his pride, and the specific kind of loss that comes with giving up the thing you were good at. This is Season 3, making the past matter, making the backstory of a character real. Terror Tales of the Park, the Halloween anthology episode, is the first of 6 annual anthology specials that run through the show's final season. And what's interesting about Terror Tales of the Park, from a craft perspective, is what it allows the show to do. Tell stories in a completely different register. The anthology format removes the constraint of canon. These stories might not be real. They're told by the characters around a campfire, and so the show can kill characters, subvert its own rules, go places the main continuity wouldn't support. It's a creative pressure valve, and it opens up each season. Excellent. Season 3, Episode 17. Aired on April 23rd, 2012. This is the Emmy episode, Outstanding Short Format Animated Program, 2012. And if you haven't watched it in a while, or if you've only seen it once, I want to talk about what it actually is underneath the comedy. Rigby tries to eat a 12-egg omelet to win a novelty hat. He fails. He goes into anaphylactic shock. He has an egg allergy he didn't know about, and falls into a coma. And Mordecai, in response, goes to the restaurant and enters the eating challenge himself, not to win the hat, not even necessarily because Rigby would have wanted him to, because he cannot process his best friend being in a coma and doing something, even something absurd, even something that involves training with a cartoon knight character and fighting your way through escalating eating challenge opponent, is better than sitting in a hospital waiting room being helpless. The episode ends with Mordecai winning the hat and delivering, in the hospital room, what is essentially a furious declaration of love. He hasn't been able to say that Rigby is important to him. The show has never given him a scene that requires him to say it, and this is the scene. The stakes are ridiculous. The emotion is completely real. And the Television Academy, in 2012, you recognize that this was what television should be. Season 3 is also where the show starts to build what I'd call a mythology of skill. Characters who are good at things start to be defined by being good at those things. Skips is competent at everything, and the show begins to use that competence as a way to tell stories about what it costs to be the person who always fixes things. Benson is good at management in ways he doesn't get credit for. Muscle Man is surprisingly good at things no one expects him to be good at. The show discovers that competence is as interesting as incompetence. That watching someone succeed at something, especially something they care about, can generate as much emotional energy as watching them fail. Trucker Hall of Fame is the quiet devastation of Season 3. Muscle Man, that trying to fulfill a dream of his recently deceased father's, runs into supernatural obstacles, because this is regular show, and everything runs into supernatural obstacles. The episode resolves in a way that honors his father's memory, and what it does for the show is permanently change how you see Muscle Man. Before Trucker Hall of Fame, Muscle Man is the annoying one. After it, he's the one who's carrying something. The comedy of his "my mom" jokes, which the episode explicitly connects to his father's legacy, retroactively becomes something else, something sadder, something warmer. And here's the thing about retroactive recontextualization. It only works if the show has built enough history. Season 3 is the season that builds enough history to make the retroactive moments possible. And it's the season that turns regular show from a great sketch comedy series into a show with a memory. Viewership peaks in Season 3 at some points. Fancy Restaurant pulls 2.934 million viewers, the highest single episode number of the show's middle season. The show is at a commercial high point, and then it makes a decision. Season 4, 37 episodes, October 2012 to August 2013. Season 4 premiere, Exit 9B, watched by 3.047 million viewers, a significant jump even from the Fancy Restaurant peak, the highest viewership the show had seen since its early episode. And Exit 9B is the reason. It's the show's first real event episode. The first episode that treats the history of the series as a resource to be used. Every villain from the previous 3 seasons returns, summoned by GBF Jr. and his supernatural threat to the park. All of them, together, in a 22-minute episode that is essentially a regular show greatest hits set to action movie energy. It's fan service, but fan service that requires genuine craft. You have to have actually been building something to make a payoff like this work. The storyboard artists and writers for Season 4 include Calvin Wong, Toby Jones, Andre Saloff, Madeline Queripol, Benton Connor, Hilary Florido, Sean Sealis, Kat Morris, Sarah Oleksic, Helen Jo, James Kim, and Owen Dennis, a notably expanded and diversified room compared to the first season. This matters. The voice in the writer's room getting more varied is visible in the episode quality. Season 4 has a wider tonal range than anything that came before it. It can be funnier than Season 2, sadder than Season 3, stranger than either. This is also the season that introduces Thomas, a GOAT intern, voiced by Roger Craig Smith, who joins the park crew and becomes a recurring presence. Thomas is, for most of his run, deliberately underwritten. The show keeps him a little opaque, a little difficult to fully read, which is the setup for his eventual revelation as a Russian spy in The Real Thomas during Season 6. But even before that reveal, Thomas serves a function. He's the new person, the one who doesn't yet understand how the park works. And watching the park crew initiate someone new into their specific, supernatural, completely dysfunctional world is its own kind of comedy and its own kind of warmth. Season 4 is also where the Mordecai-Margaret arc finally moved. The show has been circling this relationship since the pilot. Mordecai can't say what he feels. Margaret doesn't know what Mordecai feels. The audience knows what both of them feel. The show has been using this dynamic for 3 seasons as a source of comedic tension, and by Season 4, it's time to actually do something with it. Meteor moves. The episode where Mordecai almost kisses Margaret under a meteor shower and then pulls back at the last second is the show at its most frustrating and most honest, because that's what this dynamic actually looks like. The moment arrives. The person who's been avoiding it finds yet another way to avoid it, and the meteor passes. But the arc does move. By Stake Me Amadeus, the Season 4 finale, Mordecai finally asks Margaret to be his girlfriend. She leaves for a journalism program. But they break up, technically, because the relationship can't survive the distance. And the season ends on what is, for a children's cartoon, a genuinely sad note. They loved each other. The timing wasn't right. That's it. That's the resolution. No magical fix. No supernatural intervention that puts them back together. Just the end of a chapter. The show could have not done this. It could have kept Mordecai and Margaret in their unresolved holding pattern indefinitely. It's safer. It's easier. It generates comedic tension without the risk of an emotional payoff. The fact that it doesn't is the show committing to growth over comfort. And that commitment is what makes Season 4 important in the trajectory. Season 5, 37 episodes. September 2013 to August 2014. The season that introduces CJ, Cloud Woman. Though voiced by Linda Cardellini, first appeared earlier in the series as a potential date, but Season 5 commits to her as a real character. She is the post-Margaret love interest, and she is, and I want to say this carefully, both a genuinely interesting character and the beginning of the show's most difficult, sustained creative challenge. The love triangle between Mordecai, Margaret, and CJ is the most divisive storyline the show produced. It runs through Seasons 5, 6, and into 7. It requires the audience to hold 2 romantic possibilities simultaneously and invest in both. It asks Mordecai to be even more indecisive and emotionally avoidant than usual, which in the earlier seasons was comedic, and in these middle seasons starts to feel genuinely frustrating. And it never fully resolves in a way that satisfies everyone. CJ doesn't appear in the finale, with the acknowledged explanation being that she cut ties with the group after the events of the love triangle. I want to be honest about this, because I think being honest about the love triangle is important for understanding what the show is doing across these seasons. The love triangle is the show's biggest creative stumble. Not a fatal one, not even close, but real. The problem isn't the premise, which is genuinely interesting. It's that the show handles Mordecai's indecision in a way that eventually makes him hard to root for, and handles CJ in a way that leaves her underdeveloped relative to what the storyline requires of her. But here's what the love triangle does for the show, even as it strains it. It forces Mordecai to become a person whose flaws have real consequences. Before the love triangle, Mordecai's emotional avoidance is funny. During and after it, his emotional avoidance hurts someone. And that shift from avoidance as comedy to avoidance as damage is what eventually makes his arc in the final seasons meaningful. You can't appreciate who Mordecai becomes without understanding what he did to CJ. The stumble is part of the story. Season 5 is also the season of Skip's story. Season 5, episodes 24 and 25. The reveal of how Skips became immortal, the story of Walks and Mona, and the Guardians of Eternal Youth, is the show at its most ambitious in terms of pure emotional storytelling. The episode commits completely to its premise. This person, who you've been watching as a competent background presence for 4 seasons, has a backstory that is a genuine tragedy. And the tragedy isn't background furniture. It's load-bearing. It explains every single thing about how Skips moves through the world. He skips because his girlfriend died. He skips to honor her memory. He skips because at some point, grief became motion. And motion became identity, and identity became habit, and habit became the character you've been watching for 4 years. That reveal in Skip's story is the show proving that it has been paying attention to its own characters all along, that the details were never accidental, that the slow accumulation of season after season adds up to something. And Season 5 also has the Thanksgiving special, one of the most purely enjoyable holiday episodes the show produced, and the emotionally rich Laundry Woes, the season opener, which is one of those episodes that seems like throwaway comedy on the surface, and is actually about Mordecai processing the aftermath of his relationship with Margaret. The show is getting better at disguising its emotional content inside its comedy, which is a craft achievement. Viewership in Season 5 remains solid. The Thanksgiving special pulls 3.043 million viewers. The show is commercially stable. And then something happens that suggests the show is willing to bet on its own mythology. Season 6, 28 episodes, October 2014 to June 2015, the shortest season in the middle run. It deliberately compressed to accommodate the production of regular show, the movie, which premiered in 2015. Season 6 is the season that contains Merry Christmas Mordecai, the Christmas episode that everyone remembers, the one where Mordecai kisses Margaret at Eileen's party in front of CJ. It is the most dramatic episode the show had produced to that point. It's a regular show episode with essentially no supernatural escalation. The entire crisis is interpersonal, and the show pulls it off. The comedy of the white elephant gift exchange immediately before it, the half-hour slot contains both, makes the tonal shift into the Christmas party drama even more effective. You're laughing, and then you're not, and the transition is seamless. This is the show demonstrating that it has graduated from needing the supernatural to carry emotional weight. The supernatural was always a metaphor. I've talked about this. But in Season 6, the show proves it can carry the emotional weight directly, without the demon, without the escalation. Just 2 people, a mistake, a consequence. That's enough. Season 6 also contains the real Thomas, which is its own structural achievement. The GOAT intern who has been quietly present for 2 seasons is revealed as a Russian spy. It's comedic, it's absurd, it's entirely in the spirit of the show. And it also means the show successfully planted and maintained a long-form mystery across multiple seasons without the audience catching on. That kind of long-game storytelling, keeping a secret visible but unreadable, is harder than it looks. And the season ends with Dumped at the Altar, the Muscle Man wedding, the culmination of his entire romantic arc. And it's the show confirming that secondary characters can carry a finale. Muscle Man and Starla's wedding is genuinely moving, and by this point, it should be. The show has spent 6 seasons slowly revealing who Muscle Man actually is, and the wedding is the evidence that he got there, that the loud, brash, my mom joke machine grew into someone capable of this. Think about how much patience that required. 6 seasons. The show committed to Muscle Man's redemption arc before most people knew it was an arc. Season 7, 36 episodes, June 2015 to June 2016. This is the season that changes everything. Not the mythology, not yet, but the structural DNA of the show. Season 7 is where regular show becomes a show with deliberate, sustained narrative arcs, instead of a show with occasional multi-episode storyline. The shift is visible from the very first episode of the season, Dumptown USA, which aired as a season sneak preview on June 26, 2015, picks up from where Season 6's Mordecai storyline left off, and throws him into a new situation with real emotional continuity from what came before. But the big move in Season 7 is the dome. A mysterious dome appears over the park, monitored by a group of scientists. This is not a standalone episode premise. This is a season-long mystery, a slow-building arc that the show maintains across multiple episodes without resolving. In the Dome Experiment Special, the double-length episode that gives the Dome its fullest treatment, pulls 1.597 million viewers and becomes the most watched episode of the season. The audience is responding to the shift into serialized storytelling. And within the Dome arc, a revelation. Mr. Maillard, when the Dome packs up and the park crew expects normalcy, doesn't react the way you'd expect a businessman who wasted money on a science experiment to react. He sheds a tear, just one, just barely visible, and the show moves on, and you might miss it. And if you're watching in 2015 when it airs, you definitely don't know what it means. But they planned it. They planted it. That single tear from Mr. Maillard in Season 7 is foreshadowing for the revelation in Season 8 that he knows exactly why his son Pops is cosmically important and what that means for his future. The tear is grief. The tear is a father who has known all along what his child is. That detail, planted in Season 7 and paid off in Season 8, is the show operating at a level of long game storytelling that most animated series never attempt. Season 7 is also the diploma arc season. Rigby goes back to high school. The decision is made across the early episodes of the season. The work of returning is shown across the middle episode. And the culmination comes in the finale, Rigby's Graduation Day Special. 2 real-life songs play in the graduation special, Pomp and Circumstance by Edward Elgar, the traditional graduation march, and Here Comes a Regular by The Replacement. That second song choice is significant. Here Comes a Regular is a song about a regular at a bar, about someone stuck in a place, about the specific melancholy of a life lived in place, rather than in motion. The show using it for Rigby's graduation, the moment of his movement, his breaking free, is the show being exactly as musically literate as we've come to expect. The irony is intentional, and it's tender. The graduation speech itself. Rigby, standing in front of his classmates and their families, delivers a speech that the show doesn't try to make profound. And his speech line, which fan blogs have been quoting ever since, is, "When you do the hard stuff, it becomes not that hard." That's it. That's the insight. It's not Shakespeare. It's not a revelation. It's the thing you know after you've done the thing. The wisdom of practice rather than the wisdom of theory. And Rigby's delivery of this, still nervous, still himself, still a raccoon in an ill-fitting cap and gown, is one of the great character moments in the show's run. And then the park blasts into space. The Dome, which has been sitting over the park for half a season, is a launch vehicle. The whole park, with everyone inside it, leaves Earth. The season ends on the biggest cliffhanger in the show's history, the biggest risk in the show's history, and the transition into the final chapter. Season 8, 27 episodes, September 2016 to January 2017. Regular show in space. Look, I know. When people hear the space season, their reaction is often some version of, "That's where it jumped the shark." The park is the show. Remove the park. Remove the grounding, remove the mundane that makes the supernatural meaningful, and you lose what made regular show regular show. Here's my counter argument, and I want to make it carefully. The park was never the show. The park was where the show happened. The characters are the show. And the characters in Season 8 are the fully realized versions of people the show has been building for 7 years. They don't need the park anymore. They've outgrown it. The park sent them to space, because that's what the park does. It's a context that eventually gets transcended. Also, though practically speaking, the show needed a contained physical space for its final season. The park in space, inside the Dome, is that space. The characters can't leave easily. They're isolated together. They have to figure out who they are in a context that doesn't default to normalcy. And what they discover is exactly what the show has been arguing all along. Who they are is not defined by the circumstances. The park groundskeepers, in space, are still exactly themselves. The season opens in discovery mode. One space day at a time, the premiere, is Mordecai and Rigby figuring out what space even is. It's comedy and wonder in equal measure, and it's the show resetting the premise without resetting the characters. By the 3rd episode, Welcome to Space, the show has established the Space Tree Station, the new hub, and the replacement for the coffee shop, the place where the crew will be most of the season, and the tone is calibrated. Season 8 is regular show. If regular show were set on a spaceship in a cartoon version of the cosmos, which turns out to be a perfectly fine place to set it. The middle stretch of Season 8 does something the show hasn't done before. It gives almost every supporting character their own dedicated space story. Muscle Man and Starla, dealing with their new life together. High Five Ghost and his girlfriend Celia. Benson adjusting to managing a crew in a completely novel context. These episodes, which might look like filler from the outside, are the show honoring every character it's built across 7 seasons. Everyone gets a goodbye in miniature before the finale takes over. And then, the ice tape. Season 8. Episode 21. The episode that reveals Pop's full backstory. Mr. Maillard, who has been the park's distant, slightly ominous owner for 8 seasons, records a videotape for Pops explaining what he is. Pops is not Mr. Maillard's biological son. Pops is an alien from Lollyland, the embodiment of pure good, destined for eternal conflict with his twin brother Antipops, the embodiment of pure evil. Their battle determines whether the universe continues or reset. It has happened before. It will happen again unless something changes. The reveal works, and I want to be specific about why it works. Because mythology reveals often don't. Because the show has spent 8 seasons making Pop's specific quality of openness feel significant. The episode isn't telling you something new about Pops. It's telling you something that makes everything you already knew about Pops click into place. His innocence was never naivety. His warmth was never weakness. His refusal to be jaded in a world that kept trying to jade him, that was the practice, the preparation, the development of the one quality that can stop Antipops from winning. Kill Him with Kindness, Season 8, Episode 26, is the episode where this theme is stated most explicitly. Pops tries to defeat Antipops using kindness rather than violence. It doesn't work, not yet. The episode is about the attempt, the failure, and Pops' determination to keep trying. And what makes it work is that by Season 8, the show has earned the philosophical weight of this argument. We've watched 8 seasons of characters choosing connection over distance, warmth over cynicism, yet friendship over convenience. We believe in kindness as a force because the show has spent 8 years demonstrating it. Cheer Up Pops, the second to last episode before the finale, is the show at its tenderest. The park crew knows Pops is going to his death. They know they can't stop it. They try to make it matter less, to make it bearable, to give him enough joy before the end that the end feels earned. And every attempt fails in a small way. Each memory they try to celebrate reminds him of what he's about to lose. But they keep trying, because that's what you do. You show up, even when showing up doesn't fix anything. I've watched Cheer Up Pops 3 times now preparing this, and what strikes me each time is how quiet it is by the show's standard. No major escalation. No supernatural disaster. Just a group of people trying to love someone toward his death. And the Blu-ray discs they make, the archive of their adventures, packaged and preserved, are the episode's central image. These people, knowing the universe might reset, decide to record themselves, to leave a message in a bottle addressed to whoever they might become. That's the most human thing Regular Show ever did. That's the show, in its second to last episode, arriving at exactly the thing it's been about since Mordecai and Rigby stood in the park in 2010 and didn't want to rake leaves. Time passes, things end. The question is whether you pay attention while it's happening. A regular epic final battle, 3 parts, January 16th, 2017, the series finale, the battle I've described elsewhere, the cosmic confrontation, the universe resetting. To part 3, beginning exactly like the first episode, Rigby remembering first, the Blu-ray disc, the return, Pop's final choice to embrace rather than fight, David Bowie's Heroes, the montage, Mordecai as an artist, Rigby and Eileen married with daughters, Benson finding love and inheriting the park, Skips in jean shorts, still there, still fixing things, High Five Ghost DJing in Prague, Pops watching all of it on tape in a warm afterlife, calling it Regular Show. A regular epic final battle was the most watched episode of the final season, 1.365 million viewers. Not the biggest number the show ever pulled, but it pulled it in 2017, when cable viewership was declining across the board, when the streaming wars were beginning, when the idea of a linear television audience for a Cartoon Network show was already becoming a relic. Well, in that context, 1.365 million people watching the finale of a show that had been running for 7 years is not a small number. It's a loyal number. It's the number of people who were there for all of it, and the finale earns every one of them. Now, I want to go back to my original claim, that the show gets better every season, and defend it with some specificity, because I've been telling you the story season by season, but I haven't yet articulated the specific things that improve. Let me do that now. The first thing that improves is the writing staff's understanding of what the show is for. In Season 1, The show is for comedy. The escalation formula exists to generate funny situations. The characters exist to be funny within those situations. The emotional beats, Mordecai and Rigby's friendship, Benson's frustration, is Skip's competence are texture, not purpose. By season 3, the show knows it's for something else as well. It's for the truth about what it costs to be 23 and directionless, about what it costs to have given something up, about what a friendship looks like when it's built on mutual recognition of mutual failure. The comedy is still the vehicle, but the destination has changed. By season 7, the show is for the long game. It's for the payoff that only works if you've been paying attention for 6 seasons. It's for the single tear from Mr. Maillard that doesn't mean anything in the moment and means everything in retrospect. It's for the when you do the hard stuff, it becomes not that hard that Rigby delivers at his graduation because he's actually done the hard stuff and the speech is evident. Then the second thing that improves is the show's relationship with consequence. Season 1 has very little consequence. Episodes resolve. Things go back to normal. The status quo reset. This is how most cartoons work. And it's fine as a baseline. You're establishing the world. You don't want early episodes to close doors. By season 3, consequence is building. Mordecai's relationship with Margaret is accumulating history. Muscle Man is no longer just the annoying one, but someone with a dead father. Benson has a backstory. The world of the show has memory. By season 6, consequence is the engine. Merry Christmas, Mordecai only works because of 4 seasons of Mordecai being emotionally avoidant. The kiss at the party is the consequence of years of not dealing with his feelings directly. The episode requires the history to land. Without seasons 1 through 5, it's just a Christmas party with a romantic complication. With them, it's the thing you were waiting to happen, even though you didn't know you were waiting. By season 8, consequence is cosmic. Every choice Mordecai and Rigby made in 8 seasons is reflected in who they are at the finale. Rigby remembers because Rigby grew the capacity for reflection. Mordecai is ready to help Pops because he has spent 8 seasons learning what it looks like to show up even when it's hard. The finale works because everything before it worked. The consequence of a well-told story is a finale that feels like an arrival rather than an ending. The third thing that improves is the show's ambition in genre. Season 1. Supernatural comedy escalation. This is the genre. The show is very good at it. In season 2, supernatural comedy escalation plus emotional backstory. Over the Top is a sports movie parody and a grief episode simultaneously. The show learns to do 2 things at once. Season 3, supernatural comedy escalation plus emotional backstory plus character mythology. Skip's story is a romance, a tragedy, a comedy, and an explanation of a character's defining trait, all in the same 44 minutes. Season 4, supernatural comedy escalation plus drama. Stake Me Amadeus ends a romantic relationship in a way that's sad and real without supernatural intrusion. Season 5, supernatural comedy escalation plus drama plus long-form mystery. Thomas exists across 2 seasons as an unsolved question. Season 6, drama that doesn't need the supernatural. Merry Christmas, Mordecai is a holiday episode that doesn't require a demon. Season 7, serialized drama. The Dome Arc. The Diploma Arc. Multi-episode story that can't be understood from a single episode. Season 8, serialized science fiction drama with a cosmic mythology. The show in its final season is doing something that would have been unrecognizable from season 1, and yet is completely continuous with everything that came before. That's a trajectory. That's a show that learns its own language and keeps expanding it. The fourth thing that improves, and this one is subtler, and I think the most important, is the character's capacity for interiority. In season 1, Mordecai and Rigby don't really have inner lives. They have motivation. Mordecai wants to impress Margaret. Rigby wants to have fun, but those motivations are external. They want things from the world, not from themselves. By season 3, they have self-knowledge. Mordecai knows he's being avoidant. He knows he's making the wrong choice. He just makes it anyway, which is a completely different and much more interesting kind of character. By season 5, they have guilt. Real guilt. Mordecai has hurt CJ by being indecisive. He knows it. The guilt doesn't immediately change his behavior. That's what makes it realistic, but it's there. It accumulates. By season 7, they have growth. Rigby has done the thing he was most afraid of doing. Mordecai has started to acknowledge that his life being stuck is his own responsibility rather than the universe's. They're different, not transformed, still recognizably themselves, but different. By season 8, they're ready. For whatever the finale requires of them, they're ready. Not because they became perfect, but because they've been practicing. Character growth in animation is extraordinarily difficult to do in a way that feels both authentic and coherent across 8 seasons of content. Regular Show does it, and it does it while being funny, while maintaining the escalation formula, while giving the secondary cast their own arcs, while introducing new characters, retiring old ones, telling standalone story, building mythology, and producing holiday special. That's the show. That's the whole 8-season arc of it. A proof of concept that becomes a character study, that becomes a mythology, a formula that becomes a language. A cartoon about 2 slackers avoiding work that becomes one of the most emotionally coherent stories in the history of children's animation. I want to talk about what makes the decline narrative, the idea that the early seasons are better, so persistent, because I think it's worth understanding. Part of it is nostalgia. If you watched Regular Show when it was airing, you were probably somewhere between 10 and 20 years old. The seasons that correspond to your formative years with the show will always feel like the best season. That's just how memory works. The thing that got there first has the advantage. Part of it is structural. The early seasons, being episodic, are easier to dip into. You can watch Death Punchies or Over the Top without context and have a complete experience. By season 7, then the episodes that hit hardest, Rigby's Graduation Day Special, The Dome Experiment, require knowing the characters and their history. You can't fully appreciate Rigby's Graduation Day Special if you don't know about More Smarter, or the Diploma Arc episodes, or the specific weight of Rigby's history with failure. And part of it is that what the early seasons are better at, pure, standalone, escalation-driven comedy, is more immediately legible than what the later seasons are better at. The later seasons are better at accumulation, at payoff, at the satisfaction of a long story arriving somewhere it earned. These are harder to articulate than, this episode had a really funny bit, but they're real. The improvement is real. And if you've spent time with this show, if you know it well enough to watch the finale and feel it the way it deserves to be felt, you know that the finale only works because of everything that came before it. You know that Rigby remembering is the payoff for 7 seasons of Rigby being the one who couldn't. You know that Pops' embrace of anti-Pops is the conclusion of a thesis the show has been writing since the first episode. You know that Heroes playing over that montage isn't a song choice. It's the show's closing argument. Regular Show gets better every season because the people making it were growing. Because Quintel and his team, the storyboard artists, the writers, the voice cast who recorded together in the same room, the Mark Mothersbaugh music that found the exact temperature of the show's emotions and held it across 8 years. We're learning what the show was capable of while making it. We're discovering in real time that they had more to say than they initially thought. The first episode is The Power, a magical keyboard, 2 slackers, a Yeti sent to the moon. The last episode is a regular epic final battle, a lollipop man embracing his evil twin, a blue jay becoming an artist, a raccoon becoming a husband, David Bowie, the park in space, Pops watching it all on a tape he calls Regular Show. That distance from the power to the finale is 8 seasons. It's also a complete human story. The story of how people who start out avoiding everything eventually arrive at the thing they were avoiding, which turns out to be exactly what they needed, which turns out to be worth every supernatural disaster, every argument, every moment of cowardice and consequence, and small, hard, accumulating growth. That's the trajectory. That's what gets better every season means. Let me come back one more time to a few specific moments that I think make the argument most cleanly. Because argument is one thing and feeling is another. And in the end, the show works because of specific scenes in specific episodes that make you feel something you didn't expect. Season 1, Death Punchies. Mordecai chooses to lose rather than kill Rigby. You don't fully understand why until you've watched the whole show. In the moment, it's a payoff to an escalation. In retrospect, it's the thesis. Season 2. As it's time, Mordecai's desperation with the time machine is played as comedy and is quietly terrifying. The show is showing you who Mordecai is under pressure. Obsessive, recursive, unable to stop. Years before the show addresses this directly. Season 3, Excellent. Mordecai's speech in the hospital room. He doesn't know how to say what he feels, so he says it sideways, while wearing a novelty egg hat. And the show doesn't underline it, or zoom in, or put emotional music underneath it. It just lets him say it, and moves on. The confidence to not oversell the moment is a sign of a show that has found its voice. Season 4, Stake Me Amadeus. Mordecai and Margaret break up. Not because of a misunderstanding, not because of a supernatural complication, but because she's leaving for school and the relationship can't survive the distance. The show lets an adult thing happen without making it more than it is. Season 5, Skip's story. The Skip. After 4.5 seasons of watching Skip's skip as a visual habit, the show shows you that the habit is grief, that every skip is a name, that the most competent person in the park is the one who has been doing something small and private and loving for hundreds of years, in full view of everyone, and nobody knew. Season 6, Merry Christmas, Mordecai. The moment at the party, CJ leaves. Mordecai goes to find his phone. He finds Margaret's moving boxes instead. Eileen tells him Margaret is staying. She's the new roommate. And Mordecai and Margaret look at each other across the spare bedroom. The show holds the look. Both of them understanding, simultaneously, that the situation is now more complicated, not less. The music that plays during this scene, an original Mother's Ball composition, warm and fractured at the same time, is one of the best pieces of music in the show's 8-season run. Season 7, Rigby's Graduation Day Special, the speech. When you do the hard stuff, it becomes not that hard. The dome blasting into space, the dandelion seed from the episode's opening, a Forrest Gump reference, the camera following it through the park, reappearing at the end, drifting into the atmosphere as the dome lifts off. The show using a small, floating, weightless thing to mark the moment the world gets bigger. Season 8, a regular epic final battle, Part 3. Rigby touching the disc and remembering. The memories flooding back. And then Mordecai's face when he remembers too. Not a dramatic face, not a movie face, just recognition. I know this. I've lived this. It's mine. And Pop's, flying toward the sun. The telepathic comfort he sends to Mordecai and Rigby in their last moments before the light takes him. The show not showing us what he said, just showing us Mordecai and Rigby's expressions, changing from grief to something else, something like peace. Each of these moments is better because of everything that came before it. Each one is the payoff for a season of work. And taken together, in order, they make an argument that I don't think gets made enough about regular show. This was a great show from beginning to end. Not despite the evolution, because of it. I said this was about why the show gets better every season. And I've made that case, season by season, and moment by moment. But there's a version of this argument I haven't made yet, and it's the one that matters most to me personally. The show gets better every season because it keeps taking the next risk. Season 1 is safe relative to what the show could be. Episodic, formula-focused, emotionally light. It's a calculated introduction. Season 2 takes the first real emotional risk, letting the formula carry feeling. Season 3 risks the backstory, giving characters history that has to be earned and maintained. Season 4 risks the relationship payoff, actually resolving the Margaret arc rather than keeping it permanently unresolved. Season 5 risks the new character, betting that the audience will follow a new love interest through a long, messy arc. Season 6 risks the genre, showing that the show doesn't need the supernatural to be emotionally effective. Season 7 risks the serialized format, committing to arcs that only pay off if you've been watching. Season 8 risks the context, removing the park entirely, trusting that the relationships are strong enough to survive without the setting that built them. Every single risk pays off, not perfectly. The love triangle is the evidence that risks can pay off imperfectly, but it pays off in the aggregate. The show takes every risk, and the show gets better with every risk. That's not common. Most shows, especially children's animated shows, take fewer risks as they go. They find the formula that works, and they maintain it. They protect the thing they've built. Regular show kept expanding it, kept betting on its own history. They kept trusting that the audience would follow. And the audience did, not in overwhelming numbers. The ratings tell a complicated story about the decline in linear cable viewership across the mid-2000s, but in quality of engagement. The people who watched regular show in its later seasons watched it the way you watch something you love. They noticed the callback to Skip's story in the finale. They recognized the significance of Rigby being the one who remembered. They felt the weight of the Pops mythology because they'd been watching Pops for 7 seasons and knew what was at stake. That's the audience the show built. That's who was there at the end. And if you've made it this far tonight, through all 8 seasons, through the analysis, through the argument, you're part of that audience. You're one of the people who stayed, Who followed the show through the love triangle, and the space season, and the mythology, and all the moments where it took a risk that wasn't guaranteed to land? Thank you for that. Genuinely. I know how much it takes to stay with something across 8 seasons, especially something that requires the patience to trust that the later stuff is better. You did that. You're here. That was a lot. I know. 8 seasons in one sitting is a commitment, even just as an argument about 8 seasons. But that's what this show deserves. It deserves the full accounting. It deserves someone going through it and saying, no, actually, the space season is good. No, actually, Rigby's graduation day is one of the best things the show ever did. No, actually, the show is better at the end than it was at the beginning, and the beginning was already great. The park took 7 seasons to blast off into space, and when it finally did, it took everyone who'd been there all along with it. That's regular show. That's the whole thing. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you can't sleep, there are more of these, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Good night. But I want to go deeper, because I've given you the argument in broad strokes, season by season, risk by risk. And I think the argument deserves to live in the specific, in the episode, in the moments within episode, in the small creative decisions that look unremarkable in isolation and reveal themselves as part of a pattern when you zoom out. So let me do that. Let me go back through each season and tell you not just what changed, but what specific moments crystallized the change. What you can point to and say, here, this is where the show got better. Season 1 has 12 episodes. I want to pick 3 that represent what the show is doing and show you where they're pointing. Free Cake, Season 1, Episode 5. Mordecai and Rigby are supposed to throw Skips a surprise birthday party. They eat the cake before the party. They have to replace it, and the replacement leads to a supernatural adventure. The episode is pure formula, and the formula is working. And the joke at the heart of it, these two cannot be trusted with cake, is simple and effective. But here's the thing about Free Cake that I keep coming back to. The episode establishes, in passing, that Skip's birthday party exists because Skips lost his immortality briefly many years ago and almost died. And then the park crew throws him a party every year because of the memory of that near death. It's a throwaway detail in a comedy episode about stolen birthday cake. But it's also the first time the show suggests that these characters have a shared history that predates the show, that they've been through things together, that the relationships on screen are not starting from zero. That's a tiny seed. It's the kind of thing that only matters if the show eventually returns to it and builds on it. And Season 5 does, with Skip's story, which is Free Cake's backstory made explicit. Season 1 planted the seed. Season 5 grew it into something. You only understand the full weight of the seed in retrospect, which is the definition of good long-form storytelling. Prank Callers, Season 1, Episode 9. The Mordecai and Rigby discover a time phone and call their younger selves to prank them. The episode is funny, it's well constructed, and it introduces the show's first explicit time travel element. But what I notice about Prank Callers is how it treats the past. The past in this episode is not nostalgia. It's a location, a place you can visit and screw up. And the consequence of visiting and screwing up is that you come back different, marked by what you did. That's the show's relationship with the past in miniature. The past is real. Visiting it has consequences. You can't go back without bringing something forward. This theme becomes enormous in the show's later season. The diploma arc is about Rigby going back to the past and fixing it. Yet the finale is about Rigby accessing the past through the Blu-ray disc and using it to navigate the present. But it's here in embryo, in a comedy episode about prank phone call. Mordecai and the Rigby. Season 1, Episode 12. The finale. Mordecai and Rigby form a band, use the magical keyboard to cheat their way to competent, discover that future versions of themselves have already been destroyed by this same choice, and ultimately perform their actual song, the bad, uncheat one, to close out the season. The future versions of Mordecai and Rigby, who appear in this episode, gaunt and desperate and trying to warn their past selves, are one of the eeriest images the show produced in its first season. They're what the shortcut cost. They're the version of themselves that took the easy way and paid for it forever. Oh, and the resolution, playing the real song, the bad one, is the show, in its very first season, already saying, the real version of yourself is better than the fake version, even if the real version isn't very good yet. This is the thesis of the diploma arc, stated in Season 1. Be yourself, even if yourself is bad, because the fake version has already been destroyed by its own shortcut. That's Mordecai and the Rigby. That's the whole argument. 12 episodes in. Now season 2, 28 episodes. And the improvement is visible from the first one. Hello Governor is the season 2 premiere. Rigby is terrified by a British horror film about a homicidal British taxi driver, and his fear manifests a real homicidal British taxi driver. The episode is a genre parody that works precisely because the show is confident enough in its own voice to do genre parody without losing itself. Season 1. Regular show wouldn't have done this. The show was still establishing its identity. By the second season premiere, the identity is established enough to play with. What I love about Hello Governor as a season opener is that it's about fear, specifically about how the thing you're afraid of, if you engage with it obsessively enough, becomes real. Rigby isn't supposed to be afraid of this movie. Mordecai laughs at him for being afraid. But the fear is real, and the supernatural manifestation of it, the taxi driver, is the show taking Rigby's internal experience seriously enough to make it physical. This is the show learning to externalize interiority and to give internal states a body. It's a trick the show uses throughout its run. In This Is My Jam, the earworm becomes a creature. In High Score, the video game competition becomes a supernatural deathmatch. The inner experience becomes outer. The metaphor becomes literal. And this is regular show's most consistent philosophical move. The supernatural is not intrusion from outside. It's the inner life, given form. Busted Cart, Season 2, Episode 27. This is one of the most quietly devastating episodes in the entire run. Benson's cart gets wrecked. He and Mordecai go on a road trip to retrieve a replacement. They spend the whole episode together, just the two of them, in a situation that forces proximity and conversation. And what emerges across the episode, slowly, through the natural rhythm of a road trip, is a version of Benson that isn't furious, isn't threatening to fire anyone, is just a person dealing with a thing alongside another person. The episode has a lot of genuine comedy, and it has a moment near the end. I won't describe it exactly because the specifics matter, where Benson does something that reveals the particular texture of his loyalty to the park and the people in it. It's not a big speech. It's a small action. And in the context of the episode, it means everything. Busted Cart is the first episode that convincingly demonstrates that Benson and Mordecai have a relationship that is not purely antagonistic, that there's something else there, that Benson, under the management style and the threats, actually cares. But that realization, that the authority figure cares even when he seems not to, is the beginning of the show's treatment of Benson as a person rather than a function. And it happens in Season 2. Let me spend more time on Season 3, because Season 3 is the hint. Everything before Season 3 is setting up, and everything after Season 3 that is built on what Season 3 established. 39 episodes. This is a lot of episodes, and the show uses the length of the season to do something that shorter seasons can't do. It gives relationships time to breathe, to exist between episodes without forward momentum, to be something other than plot delivery system. Replace Season 3, Episode 23. Benson, fed up with Mordecai and Rigby's slacking, hires 2 new workers to replace them, and they're perfectly competent. And they do everything Mordecai and Rigby were supposed to do, without complaint, without supernatural disaster, without costing Benson anything. And by the end of the episode, Benson fires them and rehires Mordecai and Rigby anyway, not because they earned it, not because they proved themselves, because the park feels wrong without them. That choice, choosing the chaotic, infuriating, expensive originals over the efficient replacement, is the episode quietly confirming what the show has been hinting at for 2.5 seasons. Benson cares about Mordecai and Rigby, not as employees, as people. His frustration is the frustration of caring about people who keep letting you down. And caring enough to keep letting them anyway is a very specific kind of love, even if he'd never call it that. Season 3 gives Benson this episode. And it doesn't explain the choice. It doesn't make a speech about it. It just shows him walking back in, rehiring them, and getting back to work. The episode handles this with unexpected grace. It doesn't make Benson a figure of sentimentality. It makes him a person who, under the management style and the threats, has quietly chosen these specific people over easier options. This is the first time the show directly interrogates Benson's inner life. And what it finds there is not the caricature of the angry boss. What it finds is a specific kind of sadness. Not depression, not despair, but the quiet ache of the gap between who you thought you'd be and who you turned out to be. Every adult watching this episode at the right age knows exactly what that feels like, and the show treats it with respect. Camping can be cool. Season 3, Episode 6, A Camping Trip. Mordecai, Rigby, Margaret, and Eileen in the woods with a supernatural complication that turns into a survival situation. This is the first episode to really use Eileen as a character rather than a present. She's competent in the wood. She knows things. She helps. She's genuinely useful in the survival situation. And this specific deployment of her competence is interesting. The show is giving Eileen a skill that Rigby lacks, a domain where she is clearly the more capable person, without making it into a romantic plot point. She's just good at camping. That's allowed. She doesn't have to be good at it to make Rigby like her. She just is. That's the beginning of the show's version of Eileen. Someone who has a life and skills and interests independent of her relationship to the main character. Someone who isn't defined by being a love interest, but who happens to also be developing feelings for one of the main characters. It's a subtle distinction, but it matters. And it starts here. Slam dunk. Season 3, Episode 7. Mordecai wants to use the park computer to make a website for Margaret. Muscle Man and High Five Ghost have booked the computer, even though they're outside playing basketball, not using it. This infuriates Mordecai and Rigby so much, they challenge them to a full basketball game, staking their computer privileges for life on the outcome. It escalates all the way to outer space via a supernatural basketball coach called the God of Basketball. They win. And then Mordecai discovers that Margaret already had someone else finish the website 2 months ago. Though because time moves differently when your stakes get cosmic. And that's the episode in miniature. The effort Mordecai expends to impress Margaret, the supernatural basketball tournament, the cosmic stakes, the full commitment, happens 2 months too late because he wasn't paying attention to what she actually needed. Not a lesson about Rigby feeling small. A lesson about Mordecai's attention being constantly directed at the impressive gesture rather than the practical reality. That's what the episode is actually about. It's about how Mordecai's version of showing up for the people he cares about is often spectacular in exactly the ways that are least useful. He'll play a God of Basketball tournament in space for computer right. He won't just make the website on time. The escalation is always more comfortable than the simple thing. Season 3 is where the show starts naming this pattern directly. House Rules. Season 3, Episode 9. I mentioned this one earlier in the video, but let me go deeper, because House Rules is one of the purest expressions of the show's philosophical core. Mordecai and Rigby convince Benson to relax the house rule. He does, completely, all at once. And the house immediately spirals into supernatural chaos. The rules that seemed arbitrary and oppressive turn out to have been the only thing maintaining the environment's sanity. The episode is a comedy about entropy, about the function of rules that seem pointless until you see what happens without them. But it's also about something the show is interested in across its whole run, the invisible labor of maintenance, and the people and structures and habits that make a space livable, and how invisible that labor becomes to the people who benefit from it. Benson is the show's figure of maintenance labor. He manages the park. He manages the people. He manages the chaos. He does this constantly, thanklessly. And when he's forced to stop, when he relaxes every rule at once, the result is immediate and catastrophic. House Rules is the show asking, what does it cost to be the person who keeps things from falling apart? And answering, more than anyone gives them credit for. That's not a question most children's shows ask. It's a question regular show is asking in Season 3. And it's a question that only becomes more interesting as Benson becomes more developed across subsequent seasons. Fortune Cookie. Season 3, Episode 14. Benson switches fortune cookies with Rigby after Rigby gets a good fortune. Rigby's luck begins to improve. Benson's begins to decline catastrophically. The supernatural luck transfer mechanic escalates in the show's signature way, but the episode's emotional weight is in what Benson does when the luck switches. He tries to benefit from it immediately, in the most direct way possible, and it doesn't help him because luck isn't the problem. His circumstances are the problem. His life is the problem. Luck can't fix that. It's a subtle point buried in what looks like a comedy premise. The show is saying that luck is not the constraint. Structure and choice and accumulated circumstance are the constraint. And the thing you most want to believe, that a change in fortune is what you need, is probably not true. You need to change the thing underneath the fortune. This is regular show in Season 3 at its most philosophically dense, saying something real about the human tendency to attribute circumstance to luck rather than pattern. In a fortune cookie episode, now into the big season, Season 4 and Exit 9B. I described this episode already, but I want to talk about it differently now. in the context of the show improving. Exit 9B, 3,047,000 viewers, the highest the show had been since its first few episodes, works as an event episode, as a greatest hits, as a love letter to the audience that had been watching since season 1. But what it actually is, underneath the fan service surface, is an argument about what a story does to the people who share it. The park crew, in Exit 9B, have their memories erased by GBF Jr. They're brainwashed into working for the villain. Rigby is the one who retains his memory, or regains it, depending on how you read the episode, and has to use the shared history of the show to restore everyone else. He has to remind them of who they are, of what they've been through, of the specific shared adventures that constitute their collective identity. Sound familiar? It should. It's exactly what happens in the finale. Rigby remembers. Rigby touches the disc. The past saves the present. Season 4 is doing the same narrative move as Season 8, 6 seasons earlier. The show isn't repeating itself. It's finding the same truth from a different angle. The truth being, shared history is identity. The story you've lived together is who you are. Forgetting it is the worst thing that can happen to you, and remembering it is the thing that saves you. Exit 9B pulls 3.047 million viewers and represents a commercial peak for the show. And the reason it hits is precisely because the audience has enough shared history with the show to feel what's being invoked. The villains they recognize from 3 seasons of episodes, the callbacks they understand, the sense that something has been built and is now being returned to them. Exit 9B is the show's first explicit statement that the audience is part of the story too, that their memory of the show is part of what makes the show work. That's sophisticated storytelling. That's Season 4. 150 Piece Kit, Season 4, Episode 5. I want to give this episode its full moment, because it's the one that breaks Benson open in the most complete way, and I don't think it gets talked about enough outside of this is the Benson episode. Benson's old hair metal band, Heir to the Throne, is coming to play a concert at the park. The band has always claimed that the legendary drum solo on their debut album, the most technically impossible drum solo ever recorded, was played by a drum machine called the Drumotron 6. But Benson knows the truth. He played it. The band fired him after the recording specifically because he was too good, too talented. He would have taken all the credit. So they replaced him with a machine and went on to become famous while Benson quietly became a park manager. The episode is Benson trying to prove this. Heir to the Throne sabotages his kit. The Mordecai and Rigby, who start the episode as the band's fanboy roadies, eventually switch sides when they see the sabotage for what it is. They help Benson reassemble the kit, fight off the band, and give him his moment. And Benson plays the solo, with his skeleton briefly on fire. He proves it. He wins. And then the band offers him his spot back, and he says no. He goes back to managing the park. That's the devastating part. Not the injustice of the past, though it is unjust. The devastating part is what Benson chooses after the vindication. He had the chance to return to the life he gave up, and he chose not to. Maybe that's peace. Maybe it's resignation. Maybe it's the quiet dignity of someone who knows they've become something different in the years between then and now. The episode doesn't tell you which, and it just lets him walk back to the park. That ambiguity, the refusal to package Benson's choice into a lesson, is the show in Season 4 showing it can hold discomfort, can let a character make a complicated choice and not explain it. Season 1 wouldn't have done that. Season 4 does. Picking up Margaret, Season 4, Episode 23. Mordecai's parents pick him up to drive to the airport, where he's going to collect Margaret. They then spend the episode stuck in traffic, while Mordecai's parents embarrass him with stories from his childhood and ask increasingly pointed questions about his relationship with Margaret. This is a bottle episode, essentially. 2 cars, a traffic jam, a confined space. And it's one of the funniest episodes of the entire series because of what the confined space forces. Mordecai has to sit with his feelings about Margaret, literally unable to leave, in a car with his parents, who keep inadvertently asking exactly the questions he's been avoiding. But what makes the episode more than comedy is what it reveals about Mordecai's parent. They love him, genuinely, specifically, sometimes embarrassingly. They know his history. They have the tape of all his embarrassing moments, Morty moments, his mother calls it. And they replay those moments not to humiliate him, but because they love the person in those moments. The person who got stuck in a slip and slide, who had a malfunctioning bungee cord during a play, who is still, at 23, figuring out how to talk to the person he liked. That love, the specific, evidence-based, slightly suffocating love of parents who have been paying attention, is the best counter-argument the show offers to Mordecai's belief that he's inadequate. He has people who see him in his most embarrassing moments and love him there. The issue isn't whether he's worth loving. The issue is whether he can believe it. That's Picking Up Margaret, a traffic jam episode that's also about parental love and self-worth. Season 5 deserves more time than I've given it, because it's the season that gets the most unfair treatment in the discourse. Season 5 is often described as the weakest. The love triangle is at its most awkward. The CJ arc hasn't fully found its footing. The middle run of episodes feels less distinctive than what came before and after. And there's truth in this. Season 5 has the most uneven individual episode quality of the show's run. But Season 5 does 3 things that are essential for the show's later success. First, it introduces CJ as a real character. Not perfectly, the early CJ episodes are inconsistent, but the late season CJ episodes, particularly Real Date, the season finale, are the show figuring out how to write this relationship. CJ works best when the show is honest about what she wants and what she's not getting. Real Date is CJ and Mordecai finally having an actual date, unencumbered by supernatural disaster, which is a deliberate choice, and discovering that they genuinely work together. The episode earns its warmth, and it establishes that the relationship is real, which makes the later damage to it meaningful. Second, this Season 5 gives us Skip's story, which I've discussed. This is the show's deepest backstory episode across its entire run, and it sets a standard. If you're going to give a character a history, it has to illuminate who they are now, not just explain them, illuminate them. After Skip's story, every skip is a different thing. That standard carries forward into every subsequent backstory episode the show does. Third, Season 5 establishes the diploma arc in its nascency. The details of Rigby's academic history, that he didn't finish high school, that this is a source of shame, that Mordecai knows about it, and occasionally uses it against him, are woven through multiple Season 5 episodes without being the focus of any single one. The show is laying groundwork, building the foundation of something that won't pay off until Season 7. That patience, keeping an arc alive across 2 seasons without making it the main story, is Season 5 doing its structural work quietly. Season 6 and the shift I mentioned. The show learning it doesn't need the supernatural. Maxon and Relaxin. Season 6, Episode 1. Mordecai takes CJ to his parents' house. Horrified, he tries to keep the visit short. His parents are, again, wonderful, embarrassing, loving, specific. His mom shows CJ the Morty Moments tape. And what's interesting about this episode is what it does to Mordecai's relationship with CJ. CJ, watching the tape, sees the embarrassing moment, the things Mordecai most wants to hide, and doesn't recoil. She finds them endearing. She sees who Mordecai actually is in those moments and likes that person. That's a crucial piece of character development for both of them. For Mordecai, evidence that showing yourself, even your worst moments, doesn't necessarily cost you the things you're afraid of losing. For CJ, demonstration that she's not in love with a performance. She knows who she's with. No supernatural escalation, just a visit to the parents and a home video. Season 6 is the show discovering that this is enough. Sad Sax. Season 6, Episode 11. The aftermath of Merry Christmas Mordecai. Mordecai tries to fix things with CJ and keeps making them worse. A street saxophonist, a shirtless, somehow transcendent presence in the episode, offers various solutions that each backfire. The episode is very funny in a very bleak way. Each attempt at repair creates a new problem. Each well-intentioned gesture lands wrong. Sad Sax is about the limits of good intention, about how wanting to fix something is not the same as knowing how, about how sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop trying to fix it and let the other person have their feeling. Mordecai hasn't learned this yet. He keeps going. He keeps making it work. And the episode doesn't give him the resolution he's looking for. The season ends with the relationship damaged, CJ's trust eroded, the work of repair still ahead. That's a hard episode for a children's show to make. The willingness to make it is Season 6 at its best. Season 7's Dome Arc. I want to talk about the structural intelligence of the Dome Arc specifically, because I think it's underappreciated as a piece of writing. And the Dome appears in The Dome Experiment, and becomes a recurring presence across the season's middle and later episodes. The audience, like the park crew, doesn't know what the dome means. The show plants clues. Mr. Maillard's tear, The scientists' slightly odd behavior, Pops' vaguely increased importance across various episodes, but never assembles them into an explanation. The dome is a question the show is holding open. This requires enormous discipline from the writing room. Every episode set partially in or around the dome is operating with a secret that the writers know and the audience doesn't. Every piece of foreshadowing has to be subtle enough to be deniable on first watch and obvious in retrospect. And this is the hardest kind of writing to do well, the kind where the reveal has to feel both surprising and inevitable. And Season 7 does it with a precision that only becomes clear when you watch the season a second time, knowing how it ends. The Button, Season 7, Episode 30. The park crew discovers a large button and must protect it, though they don't know what it does. The episode is its own comedy premise, keeping people away from a button nobody knows the purpose of. But the button turns out to be the launch mechanism for the dome. The thing they've been protecting without understanding is the thing that sends them to space. Think about that as a structural metaphor. The park crew has been doing their job, maintaining the park, dealing with crises, growing as people, without knowing what the park is actually for. And they've been protecting something they didn't understand. And when the thing they've been protecting finally reveals its purpose, it takes them somewhere entirely new. That's the show's relationship with its own mythology. The park was always building to something. The characters were always part of a larger story than they knew. The protection of ordinary life, the raking of leaves, the setting up of chairs, the avoidance of work, the friendship maintained across 1,000 small disasters was always also the preparation for something extraordinary. The Button makes this explicit in a 22-minute comedy episode about a big red button. Season 8, the space season. And I've said this before, but I want to be more specific about what's actually better in Season 8, not just why the season works despite its premise. What's better in Season 8 is the confidence. The show in Season 8 is completely confident in what it is. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't need to justify the premise or win over a skeptical audience. It knows what it's made of, and it moves through the final season with a certainty that earlier seasons didn't have. This confidence shows up in how the show handles its callback. Earlier seasons reference previous episodes occasionally, usually for laughs. Season 8 uses previous episodes as weight. When characters from earlier seasons return in the finale, Death, the Guardians of Eternal Youth, Party Horse, the Baby Ducks, their presence isn't fan service. It's evidence that the world the show built is real and populated, and has been going on even when the camera wasn't pointed at it. The confidence also shows up in how the show handles Pops. By Season 8, the show commits completely to the Pops mythology without hedging. There's no moment where the show indicates that the cosmic stakes are a joke. The cosmic stakes are real. Pops' sacrifice is real. The grief of the finale is real. The show earned the right to be this serious about a lollipop man by spending 7 seasons making him someone you love. One space day at a time, the Season 8 premiere, is the show immediately establishing the new dynamic without apologizing for the previous episode's cliffhanger. The park is in space. The park crew is disoriented. There's comedy to be found in this disorientation. Mordecai and Rigby trying to figure out what space rules are. The Benson trying to manage a crew in a context his management skills weren't designed for, and the show finds it. But the comedy sits on top of something real. These people are far from home. They don't know how long they'll be gone. They don't know what they're heading toward. That's not a comedy premise. It's a human situation the show is using comedy to navigate. Mordaby and Rigby, Season 8, Episode 17. One of the stranger and better late season episodes. Mordecai and Rigby have their brains swapped and discover that being in each other's bodies doesn't change who they are. Rigby in Mordecai's body is still Rigby. Mordecai in Rigby's body is still Mordecai. The physical swap doesn't alter the essential self. This is the show in its penultimate season, confirming something it's been building toward for 8 years. Mordecai and Rigby's identities are not their bodies or their circumstance. There's something deeper, something that survives even when the container changes. The episode is a comedy about body swap confusion, and it's also the show proving, one more time, that character is the thing. And then the finale, a regular epic final battle, which I've described in detail elsewhere and won't fully repeat here. But in the context of why the show gets better every season, let me say the thing that the finale proves above all else. The finale proves that the show was planning something. Not necessarily planning every detail from episode 1, that would be impossible, but planning a direction, building towards something. The fact that the power and a regular epic final battle rhyme structurally, both beginning with Mordecai and Rigby in the park, one initiating the story and one resolving it, is not an accident. It's the show closing the loop it opened. It's the show saying, the thing we started with and the thing we finished with are the same thing. You've come all the way around. That kind of structural completeness is only possible in a show that got better. A show that stayed the same couldn't have arrived there. A show that declined couldn't have arrived there. Only a show that kept growing, kept risking, kept discovering what it was capable of. Only that show arrives at a finale that makes The Power feel like a promise kept. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this, if you take nothing else. Regular Show is a show that earned its ending. In a medium where endings are rare and good endings are rarer, Regular Show's finale is an earned one. Not because it was handed to them, not because of luck, because season after season, the show took the next risk, added the next layer, found the next true thing. Season 1, proof of concept. Season 2, emotional vocabulary. Season 3, memory and consequence. Season 4, event storytelling and payoff. Season 5, the hard middle. Season 6, confidence without the supernatural. Season 7, serialized depth. Season 8, the earned conclusion. That's the arc. That's the whole shape of it. And you can see it if you look. You can feel it if you watch in order, with patience, with the willingness to be somewhere in the middle for a while before you get to the end. Then the park blasted off in 2017. Pops flew into the sun. The crew went home, and then the credits rolled, and Mark Mothersbaugh's 12 seconds of theme music played one last time. And it sounded like the end of the day, like always, like every episode before it. But this time, it really was the end of the day, and the day was worth it. Thank you for all 8 seasons, for staying. Good night. Wait, one more thing before I actually go, because there's an argument I keep circling and not quite making, and it's the one that ties all 8 seasons together in a way that goes beyond craft or structure, or the quality of individual episodes. The show gets better every season because growing up is what the show is about, and growing up requires time. You cannot rush it. You cannot skip to the good part. And the specific shape of who you become is determined by the specific texture of how you get there. All the avoidance, and the mistakes, and the consequence, and the small, incremental decisions to do the hard thing anyway. There's no shortcut. Mordecai and the Rigbys said this in season 1. The whole show demonstrates it for 8 years afterward. Regular Show cannot be appreciated in its first season the way it can be appreciated after 8 seasons, because the show itself is an argument that experience accumulates, that the later stuff is richer because of everything that came before. The show is enacting its own thesis. The 8th season is better than the first season for the same reason that your understanding of yourself at 30 is deeper than your understanding of yourself at 23. Not because the early years were wrong, but because the later years contain the early years and have added to them. That's what this show is. 8 seasons of addition. 8 seasons of here's what we thought we were doing, and here's what we actually were doing, and here's how those two things are the same. Every season is a correction and a deepening. Every season is the show understanding itself a little better and trusting the audience to follow. The show gets better every season because every season the show knows more about what it's saying. Season 1 is the sentence beginning. Season 8 is the sentence ending. And between them, 7 seasons of a sentence that kept discovering how much more it had to say. Season 1 to Season 8. The Power to a regular epic final battle. Mordecai and Rigby standing in a park that doesn't know it's going to space yet. And then Mordecai and Rigby standing in a park that has come home from space and doesn't need to go anywhere else. The arc is complete. The show earned it. And now I've said everything I needed to say. Good night. For real this time. Actually, okay, I lied. One more thing. I want to talk about something specific that happens across all 8 seasons that nobody ever talks about, which is the evolution of the show's relationship with music. Not the individual songs or the Mothersbaugh score, though both of those deserve their own video. The structural relationship between music and story. In season 1, music is scoring. It accompanies what's happening. It tells you how to feel about the scene. This is standard television practice, and the show is good at it. By season 2, the show starts using music as character. This Is My Jam is the clearest example. The song is not scoring the episode, it's the episode. The song is what the episode is about. The music becomes the subject. By season 3, music is used to mark time. The 80s licensed tracks that drop during action or training, or chase sequences, are doing more than underscore. They're invoking a specific emotional register, a specific cultural memory, a specific kind of earnestness that the show is borrowing from that era to make the current moment feel larger than it is. When an 80s synth track drops in a regular show montage, you're being handed an emotional vocabulary and being invited to use it. You're not just watching Mordecai and Rigby train for something. You're watching them train in the language of every 80s film where training meant something. By season 5, then the show is making original music that matters. Summertime Loving has been around since season 2, but by season 5, there are original musical moments, songs composed for specific episodes, performed by characters, that carry emotional weight independent of their comedic function. The songs are becoming load-bearing. By season 7, a real-life song is chosen for Rigby's graduation that means something precisely because it's counterintuitive. Here Comes a Regular, about being stuck in a place, plays during the moment of a character escaping stasis. The show is using music ironically and tenderly at the same time, using the melancholy of a song about being regular to mark the moment someone stops being regular. And in the finale, David Bowie's Heroes plays over the epilogue, a song about being a hero just for one day, about the impossibility of permanent heroism, about the beauty of the singular heroic act within an ordinary life. That choice, that specific song for that specific moment, is the show at its most musically sophisticated. It's not just fitting, it's the finale's thesis in song form. Pops was a hero just for one day, just the one, and that was enough. That's 8 seasons of the show getting smarter about music, getting more deliberate about it, learning to use it not just to score, but to argue. That's what gets better every season means when you're talking about a specific craft element. Okay, now I'm really done. The show started in 2010. It ended in 2017. Between those 2 years, it became something more remarkable than its premise. Not despite its premise, because of it. 2 slackers, a park, a rake, 8 seasons. Good night. Okay, I really am coming back one more time, because I realized I never talked about what each season adds to the secondary characters, not just to Mordecai and Rigby. And the secondary characters are where a huge portion of the show's improvement live. In season 1, the secondary cast is defined by function. Benson threatens to fire people, skips, fixes things, pops, is confused by the modern world. Muscle Man, my mom, jokes, high five, ghost, is there. That's the extent of what season 1 requires from them. And it's enough for season 1. Season 2, function plus personality. Muscle Man gets Starla, which gives him something to protect. Skips gets his arm wrestling history from Over the Top, which gives him a vulnerability. Benson gets the road trip from Busted Cart, which reveals his loyalty. Pops gets several moments of unexpected emotional intelligence. He sees through situations that confuse everyone else, which starts to hint that his simplicity is not limited intelligence, but a different kind of wisdom. Season 3, personality plus backstory. Trucker Hall of Fame for Muscle Man, replaced for Benson. The episode that confirms his loyalty beneath the management. Skips Strikes, the bowling episode, for Skips, which gives him a competitive dimension and a friendship with the Guardians of Eternal Youth that adds to his history. Each backstory makes the personality retroactively richer. Season 4, backstory plus consequence. The secondary characters' histories start to matter to the present. Muscle Man's relationship with Starla deepens. Benson's romantic life becomes a subplot. Then the 150-piece kit episode, the drum kit, the lost life, makes Benson's professional anger something you can trace back to a root cause rather than accepting it as simply who he is. Season 5, consequence plus vulnerability. Multiple secondary characters get episodes that show them at their most vulnerable. Gut Model, Muscle Man is chosen as a model for a maternity wear campaign, takes Muscle Man's self-image and plays with it in ways that reveal how much he cares about how he's perceived. Skips gets Skips in the Saddle, which addresses his immortality's most practical dimension, dating. Trying to date while immortal, when every person you meet will outlive you. Season 6, vulnerability plus payoff. Muscle Man proposes to Starla. The proposal is the culmination of a relationship arc that started in season 2. 4 seasons of building toward this moment. The payoff lands because the foundation is real. Season 7, payoff plus transformation. Benson falls for Pam, the dome scientist. The season gives him a relationship that works. 2 people who are similarly intent, similarly career-focused, similarly frustrated by the chaos around them. And it's the first time Benson gets to exist as a romantic person, rather than a professional one. He's different in these episodes, lighter. Like the tension he carries as a manager gets released when he's around someone who matches his frequency. Season 8, transformation, plus farewell. Every secondary character gets their space episode, their specific version of dealing with the new contact, and each one is a goodbye in miniature. High Five Ghost and his relationship with Celia. Muscle Man and Starla's growing family. Benson's management of a crew in an impossible contact. These aren't just episode premises. They're the show saying, we haven't forgotten any of these people. Everyone gets a moment. Everyone gets to be who they became. The epilogue of the finale, with Benson inheriting the park, Skips in shorts, High Five Ghost DJing in Prague, Muscle Man with a bigger trailer and more children than he can count, is the secondary cast getting their ending too. Not just Mordecai and Rigby's ending. Everyone. The show was always an ensemble piece, and the finale honors that. That accumulation, from function to farewell, across 8 seasons, is as significant as Mordecai and Rigby's arc. Maybe more, because it required the show to keep caring about people who weren't the focus. When to spend time on supporting characters, not because the plot required it, but because the characters deserved it. Deserve is the word. Regular Show is a show about characters who, slowly, across 8 seasons, learn that they deserve better than what they've been settling for. Mordecai deserves to be an artist. Rigby deserves to finish school. Benson deserves love. Skips deserves, well, Skips is immortal, so the equation is different. But even Skips, in jean shorts at the end, has something the beginning didn't show us. A looseness, a slight ease, as if carrying the weight of centuries has gotten marginally more comfortable because he can see, in the lives of the people around him, that it was worth it. That's a lot to put on jean short, but that's Regular Show. Small things carrying large meaning. The whole show in a wardrobe choice. Let me close, for real this time, I promise, with something I haven't said directly yet, which is why I think the argument that the early seasons are better is, at its root, a sentimental argument rather than an aesthetic one. The early seasons are where most people meet the show. They're where you fall in love with the premise, with the characters, with the specific rhythm of the escalation formula. The early seasons are where Regular Show becomes part of your experience of being alive at a particular time. And that is real. That experience is real. The memory of watching Death Punchies, or Eggcellent, or Exit 9B when they first aired, in a specific place, at a specific age, is part of what the show means to you. But memory is not quality. The experience of watching something for the first time is not the same thing as the thing you watched. And when you watch the early seasons now, with all 8 seasons existing, with the whole show complete, you watch them differently. You watch them knowing what Rigby become, knowing what Pops is, knowing what the park is heading toward. And the early seasons become richer when you know those things, not poorer. The seed is more interesting when you can see the tree, which means the early seasons are not better than the later season. They're different stages of the same thing, and the thing is better at the end than it was at the beginning, because it knows more about what it is, because it's grown, because it's done the hard stuff. The hard stuff being 7 seasons of setup before the payoff, and 7 seasons of character work before the finale. 7 seasons of building, carefully and deliberately, the exact thing that a regular epic final battle needed to be exactly what it is. Rigby said it in his graduation speech. When you do the hard stuff, it becomes not that hard. The show did the hard stuff. And at the end, it was something extraordinary. That's why it gets better every season. That's the whole argument. Good night. Subscribe. I love you all. The park will be there when you need it. You know what? While I have you, and I clearly can't stop myself, let me do something I've been putting off. Let me rank the season. Not definitively, not as received truth, but as an opinion. My opinion, developed across multiple rewatches, designed to be argued with. Season 8, the space season, is the best season of Regular Show. I know how that sounds, but hear me out. Season 8 is the best season because it is the season that matters most. Not the most enjoyable, necessarily. Not the most quotable, but the one that carries the most weight. That lands the hardest, that earns the most. The space premise forces the show to prove that its characters are stronger than their context, and they are. Every episode of Season 8 is operating with the knowledge that this is the last of it, and that knowledge makes everything more concentrated, more specific. The callbacks land harder, the character moments are sharper, the mythology is finally fully articulated, and the finale, which is part of Season 8, is the best thing the show ever produced. Season 7 is the second best, and the diploma arc, the dome arc, the escalating complexity of the Rigby-Eileen relationship, Benson and Pam, the musical choices, Rigby's graduation day special, and the single bravest creative decision the show ever made, sending the park to space at the very end of the season with no guarantee that the audience would follow. Season 7 is the show at peak confidence. Season 3 is the third best, the Hinge season, the one that made everything else possible. Excellent. Trucker Hall of Fame, Skips versus Technology, the beginning of the Mordecai-Margaret arc having real consequence, the season where backstory first mattered. Season 3 is the best version of Regular Show, before Regular Show knew it could be the thing it became. Season 4 is the fourth best. Exit 9B, 150-piece kit, Meteor Moves, the Mordecai-Margaret arc arriving at its resolution. Season 4 is the show proving it can do event television and emotional television simultaneously. Season 2 is the fifth best. It's Time, Over the Top, Busted Cart, More Smarter. Season 2 is where the show found its emotional vocabulary and started using it deliberately. It's the season that established the rules the later seasons would break in interesting ways. Season 6 is the sixth best. Shorter, compressed, transitional, built around accommodating the movie's production, but containing Merry Christmas Mordecai, which is the best single episode the show produced, and Sad Sacks, and The Real Thomas. Season 6 punches above its weight. Season 5 is the seventh best, the hardest middle. The love triangle at its most awkward, but Skip's story, but the diploma arc's foundation, but the early CJ episodes establishing a relationship that will eventually pay off. Season 5 is the season that took the most criticism and did the most structural work. Season 1 is the eighth best, which is not a criticism. Season 1 of Regular Show is the eighth best season of Regular Show, which means it is better than most shows' best season. 12 episodes, pure formula, the proof of concept that made everything else possible. You cannot love Season 8 without loving what Season 1 established. They are the same story, 7 years apart. That's the ranking. That's where I land. Argue with me in the comments. I want to hear where you disagree. Because here's the thing about ranking a show's season. The act of ranking is itself a way of engaging with the show's evolution. You can't rank the seasons without thinking about how they relate to each other, what each one contribute, what would be missing if you removed it. The ranking is a way of mapping the improvement, and the map points in one direction, from the proof of concept to the conclusion, from the power to a regular epic final battle, from the beginning of the sentence to the period at the end. Regular Show, 2010 to 2017, 8th season, one continuous, improving, accumulating, gloriously specific story. I wouldn't change a single season, even the difficult one, even season 5 with the love triangle, even the space season that people are suspicious of. Every season is load-bearing. Every season is the show getting better. Every season is a door that has to be opened for the next room to exist. And the final room is extraordinary. Thank you for spending this whole night with me. Thank you for all 8 seasons of your time. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It helps us make more of these. And if you can't sleep, there are more videos waiting. The park will always be there. It took a lot to build it. It was worth building. Good night for the last time. I promise. Okay, no, genuinely. One thing I need to say, and then I'm done. I haven't talked about the show's pacing within individual episodes, and pacing is one of the things that gets better most visibly across the season. Season 1 episodes are efficiently structured. Setup, escalation, resolution, 11 minutes. Most of the escalation happens fast because the show needs to get to the punchline before the runtime runs out. This is good discipline, but it can feel rushed. The emotional beats sometimes get compressed to make room for the comedy. By season 3, the show has learned to let scenes breathe. The early seasons occasionally rush through the moment of emotional landing, the character realization, the friendship repair, the consequence acknowledgement, to get back to the next joke. Season 3 starts to trust that the emotional moment is the joke, that sitting in the feeling is what the audience came for. Excellent is the best example. The hospital room scene, Mordecai's speech, takes as long as it needs to. The show doesn't cut away early. It holds the moment. By season 5, the show has mastered the art of the quiet beat. Then the pause before a line that changes the tone, the held expression that tells you more than dialogue could. Skip's story uses this constantly. The episode is paced almost like a drama, with long wordless sections where the image is doing the work. For a show that runs 11 minutes per episode, this level of confidence in the visual storytelling is a significant development. By season 7, pacing has become a narrative tool. Rigby's Graduation Day Special is a 22-minute episode that uses its runtime precisely. The comedy sections are paced fast and tight. The emotional sections are given space. The climax, the speech, the blast-off, is paced differently from everything before it because it needs to feel like a rival. Different speed for different weight. And the finale, 3 parts, combined. About 66 minutes of story, paced like nothing else the show produced. Part 1 is dense with exposition and action. Part 2 is frenetic, maximalist, a controlled chaos of callbacks and escalation. Part 3 is the opposite, slow, quiet, deliberate. The reset to the first episode's opening is held long enough that you wonder, for a moment, whether something has gone wrong, whether this is really how it ends, whether Rigby is going to remember. The pause before he does is one of the most precisely calibrated moments in the show's run. The show knows you're waiting. It makes you wait a beat longer. And then, the disc, the recognition, the return. That pause, that decision about when to let Rigby remember, is a pacing decision. It's the show using time the way a musician uses silence, making the beat land harder by making you wait for it. Season 1. Regular show could not have made that decision. Season 1 regular show was still figuring out that moments deserve time. Season 8 regular show knows exactly how long every moment needs. That's the improvement. That's 8 seasons of getting better at the craft of making television, of knowing what the audience needs, and knowing when to give it to them. Okay, now I'm actually done. The Park, The Rake, 2 Friends, 8 seasons, 1 story. Good night. There's one final dimension I want to explore before we're truly done, and it's the most personal one. The way the show's improvement maps onto the real-world improvement of everyone involved in making it. J.G. Quintel started regular show at 28 years old. He ended it at 34, 6 years of his life, every week. You're building episodes about people growing up while he was growing up. He got married to Cassia Streb in 2010, the same year the show premiered. He went from a CalArts graduate who storyboarded a pitch about 2 park groundskeepers to the creative director of a team of approximately 35 people producing television that won Emmys and earned international affection. The show grew because Quintel grew. The two things are not separate. This is the thing about creative work at its most honest. The creator cannot hide from the work. The work reveals where they are. Season 1. Quintel is a young creator proving the concept. Season 3. Quintel is starting to trust that the concept is bigger than the formula. Season 5. Quintel is navigating the difficulty of sustaining a long creative vision under the pressure of a network schedule. Season 7. Quintel is a showrunner who knows his show and is betting on it. Season 8. Quintel is finishing something, closing something, with the specific kind of care that comes from knowing you won't get to do it again. You can hear the creator's age in the show. Not literally. The voice acting doesn't change dramatically, but structurally. The questions the show asks get more complicated. The answers get more honest. The willingness to sit in discomfort grows. The patience for the long payoff deepens. These are the things that happen to a person across 6 years of living and working and learning. And they happen to the show too. The writer's room reflects this as well. The Season 4 writing staff, Calvin Wong, Toby Jones, Andre Salah, Madeline Queripel, Benton Connor, Hilary Florido, Sean Seelith, Kat Morris, Sarah Alexic, Helen Joe, James Kim, Owen Dennis, is a room of people who had been making the show for 3 seasons and had learned together what the show was capable of. By Season 7, the room had changed. Some writers had left, some new ones had arrived, and the new arrivals brought fresh perspectives that pushed the show in directions the original room might not have found. The demographic of the writers expanded. The range of experience they drew on expanded. Owen Dennis, who wrote some of the most beloved episodes of the show's middle run, later went on to create Infinity Train for Cartoon Network, a show that has its DNA in the best of what regular show discovered about how to tell a story about people who need to change. That the lineage of regular show's creative influence is visible in a generation of animated shows that treat their audiences as people capable of handling real emotional complexity. That influence is itself evidence of the show's improvement. You don't influence the next generation of storytellers by being mediocre. You do it by being specific and honest and brave enough to say the true thing in the strange context. Regular show did that. In an 11-minute comedy about a park, it said, "True thing," and the voice cast grew with the show too. William Salyer's performance as Rigby in Season 7 and 8 is different from his performance in Season 1. Richer, more textured, capable of the quiet that the character's growth required. The impulsive chaos of early Rigby made way for something that still contained the impulsiveness, but had grown something around it. something like dignity. Salyers found that. Sam Marin's Benson in the final seasons has depths that Marin probably couldn't have reached in season 1, because Benson hadn't been written with those depths yet. The character and the performer grew together, which is what happens in a long-running series when everything is working. And Mark Hamill voicing Skips across 8 seasons with that specific resigned competence, that particular exhaustion that is really the exhaustion of having been the person who knows the answer for a very long time. In the final seasons, when Skips is given moments of genuine emotion, when the cosmic scale of what's happening touches even his millennium-old composure, Hamill finds something in those moments that is unmistakably the result of 8 years of inhabiting this specific character. The pauses, the wait, the moments where Skips, who has seen everything, looks slightly undone by what he's seeing now. That's what gets better every season means for the voice cast. The performances have more to work with because the writing gives them more. And the writing gives them more because the show has earned the right to ask for more, because it's been building to this. Quintel's next project after Regular Show was Close Enough, which premiered on HBO Max in 2020. Close Enough is explicitly about the next phase of life. A married couple, a child, and a house they're trying to buy. The transition from being just yourself to taking care of other people. Quintel said it directly. Regular Show was about being young and in college and getting into stupid situations. Close Enough is about getting married and starting a family and trying to buy a house. The creator aged out of one story and into the next. Regular Show, The Lost Tapes, announced June 2024. Expected May 2026. Quintel as showrunner will be yet another chapter. What it will say, what phase of life it will engage with, what version of these characters it will find, I don't know yet. Nobody does. But the fact that Quintel is returning, and that Mark Hamill and William Salyers have recorded for it, suggests that the story is not finished, that there's something the original run didn't say that still needs saying. That's the position you're in with a show like this. You can't quite let it go. Not because you need more of it, but because the act of revisiting it, of going back, of touching the disc, is itself the thing the show is about. You go back because the memories are real, because the version of yourself that watched it is real, because the people you watched it with, or the person you were when you watched it alone, deserve to be honored by the return. The show gets better every season, and the show gets better every time you rewatch it, and the show gets better as you get older. These are all the same statement. The statement being, this is a piece of work that rewards engagement across time, that grows with you, because it was always about growth. And that has more to say to you at 30 than it did at 20, because it was always about what happens between 20 and 30 and 40 and beyond. That's the show. That's what J.G. Quintel made. That's what the team made. That's what Mark Hamill and William Salyers and Sam Marin and Minty Lewis and Janie Haddad and Roger Craig Smith and Julian Holloway as Death and Linda Cardellini as CJ and the entire ensemble made. A show that gets better every season. A show that is better every time you come back to it. A show that has the specific and rare quality of having been made by people who were growing while they made it. And now it's 2026, and they're making more of it. And I don't know what the Lost Tapes will be, but I know I'll be here when they air, taking notes, rewatching the setup, tracking the improvement. Because that's what you do with something you love that keeps surprising you. You stay. Thank you for staying tonight. Good night. Subscribe if you want more. There are more. The park will always be there. I keep coming back because there are things I notice every rewatch that change depending on where I am in life. And tonight, I'm struck by something specific about Season 3 that I want to name before we close. Season 3 is the season where the show first truly commits to the idea that time has passed, that there is a before and an after, that what happened in the past has a texture that the present is made of. Prank Callers, in Season 1, plays with the idea of the past as a location. You can visit it, accidentally change it, bring consequences forward, but it treats the past as essentially neutral. The past is the past. You can visit it, but it doesn't require your feeling. Season 3 treats the past entirely differently. The past in Season 3 is alive. It has weight. When Muscle Man's father is revealed to have died, the past of their relationship is the substance of the episode's grief. When we learn more about Skip's history, not yet the full Mona story, that comes in Season 5, but the incremental additions that Season 3 makes to his mythology, the past is what Skips is made of. He is, more than any other character, a creature of accumulated time. Season 3 is where the show started taking seriously that these characters have pasts that predate the show, and that those pasts matter, not as backstory exposition, as emotional reality. The past is not information. The past is who you are. And the show in season 3 commits to that understanding in a way that transforms how you experience everything that came before. Because when you learn in season 3 that Benson was a legendary rock drummer, you go back and watch the early Benson episodes differently. The frustration makes more sense. The anger has a root. The person threatening to fire people every episode is not an obstacle. He's a person who chose management over music and has never entirely forgiven himself for it. And watching Mordecai and Rigby choose fun over responsibility is a daily re-encounter with the choice he made. No wonder he's furious. He sees in them the choice he wishes he'd made, and he can't make it anymore. Season 3 gives you the past, and the past changes the present. This is why the show gets better with rewatch. Each piece of new information, each backstory reveal, each season of character development, each moment where the show shows its hand, retroactively improves everything that came before it. Season 1, experienced after Season 8, is a richer thing than Season 1 experienced before Season 3. The show is building toward its own rewatch, building toward the version of itself that exists after you know how it ends. And every improvement across 8 seasons is also an improvement of what came before, because the past accumulates rather than receding. That's regular show, a show that gets better in every direction simultaneously, forward through the seasons, but also backward through them. The final image of Pops watching regular show on tape is the show acknowledging this. The story improves every time you return to it, and it's better with every viewing. And the best viewing is always the one where you've seen all of it, and you go back to the beginning, and the beginning is transformed by everything you know. The power. Mordecai and Rigby standing in the park. They're about to send someone to the moon, and in 7 years, they'll be in space themselves. And Pops is watching all of it on tape in a warm room. And it's called Regular Show. The beginning, the middle, the end. All the same story, seen from different distances. That's why it gets better. That's why it's worth watching from the beginning, every single time. Thank you for spending this night with me. Genuinely, completely, with everything I have. Thank you. Subscribe. It keeps the lights on. It means more of these. Good night. But here's the thing I keep not saying, and I think I need to say it now. When I tell you the show gets better every season, I'm making a claim about craft, about structure, about writing and character and consequence and pacing and ambition. And all of that is true. But there's a version of this argument that has nothing to do with craft at all. And that version might be the true one. The show gets better every season because every season you spend with these people is a season you've spent with these people. The improvement isn't just in the show. It's in you. It's in the relationship you've built with the characters over time. It's in the way Rigby in Season 7 means something to you that Rigby in Season 1 couldn't mean. Not because Rigby is more complex in Season 7, though he is, but because you've been with him for 6 seasons and you've accumulated something, that you've accumulated care. This is what serialized storytelling does at its best. It doesn't just tell you a story. It makes you a person who has been through that story. And being a person who has been through that story changes how you experience what comes next. Season 8 of Regular Show is better than Season 1, not just because the writing is more sophisticated, but because watching Season 8 means you are already a person who has watched Seasons 1 through 7. The experience of the show is part of the show. This is why the finale lands the way it does for people who watched all 8 seasons. The moment when Rigby touches the disc and remembers, that moment works because you remember too, because you've been there for it, because the memories on that disc are yours as much as they're the characters. The show, in that moment, is not just doing something clever with its own mythology. It's acknowledging that you have a mythology too, that you have a relationship with this world that predates the finale, that the story is yours now, not just Quintel. And that is something that only happens because the show got better every season, because it kept earning your attention, because every season gave you a reason to come back for the next one. If the show had stagnated, you'd have stopped. If it had declined, you'd have left. The improvement is what kept you there long enough to be in the room when the disc is found, and the memories flood back. The show gets better every season so that you're still there at the end, so that the ending belongs to you, so that when Pops flies into the sun, and someone who has been watching since 2010, or since whenever they first found it, feels the loss the way you feel the loss of something that was real to you, something you spent time with, something that grew up alongside you. That's what Regular Show did. That's what it achieved. It grew up alongside you. And if you're watching this late at night, if you came here because the show means something to you, and you wanted to hear someone else say it out loud, then you know exactly what I mean. You've felt the improvement without being able to articulate it. You've felt each season pulling the previous ones into richer focus. You've felt the accumulation of years of watching as something that lives in you, something that changed the texture of the experience. That feeling is real. The improvement is real. And the show got better because it had to, because the people who made it cared enough to keep pushing, and because you were there watching every step of the way. And your attention is what made the pushing worthwhile. Let me talk about what each season adds in terms of what I think of as the show's emotional register, the specific feeling it's going for in any given episode, and how that range expands across the run. Season 1's emotional register is almost entirely comic. The goal of any given episode is to make you laugh. Occasionally, you feel warmth. The friendship between Mordecai and Rigby generates genuine warmth even in Season 1, but warmth is a byproduct of the comedy, not a separate goal. The show in Season 1 is trying to be funny, and it succeeds. Season 2 introduces unease, not darkness. The show is never really dark. Even when it goes to dark places, it keeps one foot in comedy, but unease. Its time is uneasy. The episode is funny, and it's also slightly disturbing, because Mordecai's time machine obsession is slightly disturbing. The show in Season 2 learns that comedy and unease can coexist, and that the unease makes the comedy richer rather than undermining it. Season 3 introduces tenderness. The emotion between Mordecai and Rigby deepens into something tender in Season 3. Their arguments hurt more. Their reconciliations mean more. Excellent is tender. The hospital room speech is tender. The tenderness is not separable from the comedy. The show never abandons comedy, but it's there now. A new color in the palette. Season 4 introduces melancholy. The ending of the Mordecai-Margaret arc is melancholy. 150 Piece Kit is melancholy. Not because Benson loses something, but because after proving himself, he still chooses to stay exactly where he is, and the show lets that be complicated. The show in Season 4 has figured out how to hold sadness that doesn't resolve, how to let something end without making it okay. The melancholy is earned by the previous 3 seasons of investment, and it hits because of that earning. Season 5 introduces frustration, not frustration with the show, frustration within the show, as a legitimate emotional experience. The love triangle is frustrating. Mordecai's continued inability to communicate is frustrating. And the show is frustrating these things intentionally, because frustration is what it feels like to watch someone you care about making choices you can see are wrong. The frustration is love's shadow. You're only frustrated because you care enough to want better for him. Season 6 introduces relief. Merry Christmas, Mordecai generates relief not in its ending, which is not a comfortable ending, but in the moment when Mordecai and Margaret finally, genuinely talk. The relief of honest communication after seasons of avoidance. And the subsequent episodes, where the consequences are dealt with, introduce a new emotion. The exhausted, slightly bitter relief of someone who has been carrying something for too long and finally put it down, even if putting it down made a mess. Season 7 introduces pride. Rigby's graduation. The emotion in the graduation episode is pride. Not self-satisfied pride, but the complicated, slightly tearful pride of watching someone you've known in their worst moments do something genuinely hard and succeed. The audience watching that episode has been with Rigby for 6 seasons of failure and bad decisions and selfish moments. The pride is real because the history is real. Season 8 introduces something I can only call awe, not the shallow kind. Not awe at special effects or spectacle. The quiet, sustained awe of watching something conclude in a way that honors everything it was. The finale is awesome in the old sense of the word. It fills you with a feeling that doesn't fit neatly into the other category. Oh, it's the feeling of being present for something that mattered, and knowing it mattered, and not being entirely sure how to hold that. That reign, comic, uneasy, tender, melancholy, frustrated, relieved, proud, awed, is 8 seasons of emotional expansion. 8 seasons of the show, finding new things to feel and new ways to make you feel them. The comedy was always there. The comedy was always the vehicle. But the destination kept changing, kept expanding, kept becoming something new while remaining recognizably itself. That's the improvement. That's the full picture. Each new emotion is an addition, not a replacement. Season 8. Regular show is comic and uneasy and tender and melancholy and frustrating and relieving and pride-inducing and awe-inducing simultaneously. The whole palette, present at once. That's what 8 seasons of accumulation produces. A show that can hold all the feelings at once because it has taken 8 seasons to develop them all. And the finale needs all of them. The finale is funny. The My Mom joke in space. The HD DVD callback. The 1-star review payoff for Anti-Pops. The finale is uneasy. The universe resetting. The familiar turned strain. The finale is tender. Pop's last telepathic words to Mordecai and Rigby. The finale is melancholy. Pops is gone. The park is changed forever. Everyone is older. The finale is frustrating. Briefly, when time resets and you think for a moment it's going to end without resolution. The finale is relieving, when Rigby remembers, when the disc is found. The finale is full of pride. For Rigby, for Mordecai, for all of them. And the finale is awesome. And in every sense of the word, it needs all of those emotions because the show built all of them. Season by season, one new feeling at a time, across 8 years. Regular show. Getting better every season, getting bigger every season, getting more of what it always was. That's the argument. That's all of it. Now I'm really done. The park was always going to space. We just didn't know it yet. Subscribe. I love you. Good night. There's a question underneath all of this that I've been circling for the entire video without asking directly, and it's time to ask it. Why does a show about 2 slackers avoiding work at a park earn the kind of loyalty that brings people back, years later, to watch video essays about it at 2 a.m.? The easy answer is nostalgia, but I don't think that's right. Or at least, I don't think it's the whole answer. Because plenty of shows generate nostalgia without generating this specific kind of attachment. The kind where you can't quite explain why it mattered. Where the words, "it's just a cartoon," feel genuinely inadequate. Where the finale hits you in a way you weren't expecting, even though you thought you knew how it would end. Here's my actual answer, developed across the many rewatches that went into making this. Regular show earns loyalty because it is honest about time, not about big theme, not about mortality, or friendship, or growing up in the abstract, about time itself, about what it feels like to have time pass, about the specific texture of years accumulating on a life that is still in progress, still figuring itself out, still not quite sure what it's doing, or whether what it's doing matters. Then the show starts with 2 23-year-olds who don't know what they want to do. It ends with them in their late 40s, having figured it out. And what they figured out is not a destination. It's not a job or a relationship or a philosophical position. It's a way of being in time, a way of moving through years that treats every year as real and weighted and worth having, even the ones that look like wasted time from the outside. Mordecai's years of avoidance were not wasted. Rigby's failed attempts before the diploma were not wasted. The seasons of the love triangle were not wasted. Even the seasons that felt most like treading water, where the show was working through something it hadn't fully figured out yet, were not wasted, because all of it accumulated. All of it was the experience the characters needed to have before they could be who they needed to be. And here's the thing about the audience that the show is also honest about. Your years of watching were not wasted either. The time you spent with Mordecai and Rigby across however many seasons you watched is part of your history now, part of the texture of your years. And the show, in the finale, in the epilogue, in the image of Pops watching regular show on tape, acknowledges that this story was worth the time it took, that nothing that accumulated in the watching of it was without meaning. That is why the loyalty is real, because the show treated your time with the same respect it treated its characters' time, because it understood that the years you gave it are years you can't get back. And it tried, across 8 seasons, getting better at it each time, to be worth those years. The show gets better every season, because Quintel and his team understood that you were giving them real time. And real time deserves real work, real improvement, real honesty about what the thing is, and where it's going, and what it's trying to say. They gave you that. 8 seasons of it, getting better every time. I hope you feel like it was worth it. I do. Last thing, promise. This is the last thing. The specific moment in the show that best illustrates why it gets better every season is not the graduation, not the finale, not Skip's story or Eggcellent, or any of the big moments I've talked about tonight. It's a moment in Rigby's graduation day special that most people don't mention when they talk about the episode. It's not the speech, which is the climax. It's not the dome launching, which is the twist. It's a moment earlier in the episode, before the graduation, before the supernatural complication. Mordecai and Rigby are fighting. A real fight, not the usual bickering. Mordecai has been difficult all day, distracted, dismissive, not showing up for Rigby the way Rigby needs him to. He's been jealous, though he hasn't admitted it, because Rigby is graduating, and Rigby has Eileen, and Rigby is moving forward in ways that make Mordecai feel left behind. And in the fight, Rigby says something true. He says something about Mordecai that the show has been building to for 7 seasons. He names the thing. He says that Mordecai liked being the more responsible one, the more mature one. And now that Rigby is doing something genuinely mature, that Mordecai can't handle it. And Mordecai, and this is the moment, doesn't argue. He doesn't escalate. He doesn't do the thing he would have done in season 1 or 2 or 3, which is deflect or counterattack or turn the conversation into something else. He sits with it. He lets it land. He says essentially, "You're right. I didn't show up for you today because I was jealous, and that's wrong, and I'm sorry." That moment, that small, specific, completely unsupernatural moment where Mordecai is honest with Rigby about something uncomfortable, that is 7 seasons of improvement made visible in a single exchange. The Mordecai of season 1 could not have done that. The Mordecai of season 3 probably couldn't have done that. The Mordecai of season 5 definitely couldn't have done that. But season 7 Mordecai, who has been through Margaret and the art school dropout and the CJ disaster and all the other accumulated evidence of his own emotional avoidance, that Mordecai can sit in the discomfort of being seen and not run from it. That moment is the show getting better. Not the cosmic mythology, not the supernatural escalation, just a person admitting the thing to the person who needed to hear it. And it is followed, not long after, by the graduation speech, and then by the dome launching, and then by everything. But that quiet moment of honesty is what makes everything else possible. That's the seed the finale grows from. That's the improvement that matters most. Season 1 Mordecai wouldn't have said that. Season 7 Mordecai does. That's why the show gets better every season. That's the argument. Complete. Good night, truly. With everything. The park, the rake, the 2 friends, 8 seasons of learning how to say the true thing. It was worth every moment. One more thing I haven't touched on properly. The show's relationship with comedy itself across 8 seasons, and how even the comedy improved. Season 1's comedy is primarily situational. The situation is funny. Mordecai and Rigby do something they shouldn't. It escalates. The escalation is the joke. This is a reliable and effective comedic engine, and the show runs it well in season 1. But situational comedy has a ceiling. You can only escalate so far before escalation itself becomes the joke's punchline. And once that happens, you're trapped in a loop. Season 2 starts to develop character comedy alongside situational comedy. The joke isn't just what's happening. It's who is reacting to what's happening, and how that reaction tells you something specific about that person. Benson's particular species of rage, Skip's particular species of unimpressed competent, Muscleman's complete inability to read social situations correctly. These are comic characters, not just comic situations. And comic characters can sustain comedy across many more episodes than comic situations alone. Season 3 introduces what I think of as thematic comedy. The jokes are funny because they're true about something larger than the immediate situation. Fortune Cookie is funny because the premise, Benson switching fortune cookies with Rigby to get the good fortune, is also true about something real. The belief that luck is the thing standing between you and the life you want, rather than pattern and choice. The comedy operates on 2 levels simultaneously, and the second level makes the first one richer. Season 4 has escalation comedy that carries genuine emotional stakes. Exit 9B is funny. The callbacks, the villain parade, the over-the-top action, and it's also emotionally resonant because the things being referenced are things you cared about. The comedy is inseparable from the investment. The laugh is the laugh of recognition. I know these people. I remember these moments. I'm glad they're here. Season 5 develops uncomfortable comedy. The love triangle sections are often deliberately uncomfortable. The humor comes from the awkwardness, from watching someone you care about handle a situation badly, from the specific pain of recognizing your own mistakes in someone else's. Uncomfortable comedy is harder to do than comfortable comedy. It requires the audience to trust the show enough to laugh at something that also hurts. Season 6 gives us low-stakes comedy that carries massive emotional weight. Merry Christmas Mordecai is structured as a comedy of errors, misunderstandings, poor timing, escalating awkwardness, and it lands as one of the most genuinely heartbreaking episodes the show produced. The comedy structure serves the emotional content rather than competing with it. By season 6, the show has figured out how to let comedy and drama occupy the same space, without either canceling the other. Season 7 introduces earned comedy. The graduation episode is funny in a way that only works if you've watched 6 seasons of Rigby failing. When he messes up the speech attempt, the comedy is rich with context. The banana suit is not just a banana suit. It's Rigby being Rigby at the worst possible moment. And you know exactly who that is, and why this is both terrible and completely inevitable. The comedy is layered with the knowledge of what this moment cost him to get to. Season 8 has cosmic comedy, jokes that only work if you understand the mythological stakes they're subverting. Antipops being defeated by a literal 1-star rating, his own catchphrase turned against him, is a joke that requires you to know what 1-star ratings mean in the context of Season 8's storyline. It's the funniest kind of joke. The one that requires you to have been paying attention. That progression, situational, character, thematic, emotionally staked, uncomfortable, integrated, earned. Cosmic is 8 seasons of the show getting smarter about comedy, not abandoning the foundation, but building on it, using what it learned each season to do something the previous season couldn't. Even the comedy improves. Even the thing the show was always good at gets better. That's Regular Show. A show that gets better every season in every direction. In its drama, its character work, its mythology, its pacing, its music, its comedy. In its understanding of its own characters and its understanding of its audience. In its willingness to risk something new and its ability to make that risk pay off. 8 seasons. Genuinely better with each one. The argument is complete. The proof is the show. Watch all 8 seasons in order and tell me you disagree. I dare you. Good night. Subscribe. The park will be there. I mean it this time. Good night. Since I'm apparently incapable of actually ending this, let me add one final thread I haven't pulled on. The way the show improves across seasons in its treatment of what I'd call the weight of the ordinary. Regular Show has always understood that ordinary things can carry extraordinary weight. That's the entire premise. The mundane escalates. The supernatural erupts from the everyday. But across 8 seasons, the show's understanding of which ordinary things carry which kinds of weight becomes increasingly precise and increasingly honest. Season 1. The ordinary is the setup, the rake, the chairs, the VHS tape. These things exist to be the trigger for the supernatural. Their value is functional. They initiate the escalation. The ordinary is a doorway. Season 2. The ordinary is a mirror. Then the ordinary things, the arm wrestling table, the trip to the hospital, the road trip with Benson, begin to reflect the characters back at themselves. The ordinary is not just a doorway, but a surface. The characters' reactions to ordinary situations reveal who they are. Season 3. The ordinary is a container for loss. Muscle Man's father's hat. The ordinary object that holds the weight of a life unlived, a relationship ended, a version of yourself you didn't get to be. The ordinary becomes the repository of grief. Season 4. The ordinary is what's at stake. The park itself, the ordinary place, the everyday setting, becomes the thing that's threatened and must be defended. Exit 9B is about protecting the ordinary. The villain wants to transform the park into something else, and the park crew fights to maintain it as it is. The ordinary is now worth fighting for. Season 5. The ordinary is what gets lost when you make the wrong choices. The ordinary rhythm of Mordecai's life, the park, the coffee shop, the routine, is disrupted by his romantic failure. He loses Margaret. He loses the comfortable ordinary of a life that had a clear shape. And the rebuilding of ordinary across the CJ storyline is the work of Season 5. Season 6. The ordinary is what survives the extraordinary. Merry Christmas, Mordecai ends with everything in chaos. The relationship damaged. The situation uncertain. The Christmas party ended badly, and then the ordinary continues. The next morning still comes. The park still exists. Ordinary life is what absorbs the extraordinary damage and keeps going. Season 7. The ordinary is what Rigby was afraid of all along. Well, the diploma is ordinary. Going back to school is ordinary. Showing up every day and doing the work and sitting in a classroom is ordinary. And the thing Rigby was most afraid of was exactly this: the ordinary accountability of committing to something and following through on it. Season 7 is the season where ordinary becomes the thing Rigby finally chooses rather than runs from. Season 8, the ordinary, is what they're fighting to return to. The entire space season is structured around a group of people who want to go home. Not to adventure, not to significant, to the park, to the ordinary, to the specific texture of their everyday lives before any of this happened. And when the finale ends and the epilogue begins, Mordecai in his studio, Rigby with his daughters, Benson at the park with new employees. What they've returned to is ordinary, but an ordinary that means something now, because they know what it costs to protect it. That arc, from ordinary as doorway to ordinary as home, is the show's deepest movement. It's the thing underneath the character arcs and the mythology and the comedy. The show gets better every season because every season it understands more precisely what the ordinary is for. The ordinary is where you live. The supernatural is what tests whether you deserve to be there. And 8 seasons of regular show is 8 seasons of Mordecai and Rigby and Benson and Skips and Pops and Muscle Man and High Five Ghost proving, through supernatural disaster after supernatural disaster, that they deserve to be in their ordinary life, that they deserve the park, that the ordinary, that protected and maintained and returned to and appreciated, is enough, more than enough. The show started with a rake and ended with a park sent to space and returned to Earth and the people inside it, scattered to lives they earned. The rake was always the point. Good night. The show gets better every season. Watch all 8. You'll see. I love you. Subscribe. The park will always be there. A few final data points and production details I want to make sure are in here, because this is a Velvo video and we verify our facts. The show produced 244 episodes across 8 seasons. Each episode took approximately 9 months from development to finished product. Quintel led a team of around 35 people at Cartoon Network Studios in Burbank, California. That the show recorded its voice cast in group sessions rather than individual sessions, unusual for animation, which is why the dialogue has that specific texture of real people actually responding to each other. The Season 4 premiere, Exit 9B, drew 3.047 million viewers on October 1st, 2012, the biggest single episode number in the show's history outside of the first few episodes. Season 3's Fancy Restaurant drew 2.934 million viewers. Season 5's The Thanksgiving Special drew 3.043 million. These peak numbers are concentrated in seasons 3 through 5, which track. The show had enough history to feel event-like in those seasons, and the broader Cartoon Network audience was still primarily a cable television audience in 2012 and 2013. By seasons 7 and 8, and the streaming fragmentation of cable viewership meant lower per episode numbers even as the quality peaked. The finale, a regular epic final battle, drew 1.365 million viewers on January 16th, 2017. Lower than the peaks, but loyal. The people who were there for the finale were the people who had stayed. And for the finale to land the way it landed, you needed to be one of those people. You needed to have been paying attention. The show won 1 Emmy, Outstanding Short Format Animated Program for Eggcellent, in 2012, Season 3, Episode 17. It was nominated 5 more times without winning. 7 Annie Award nominations, 3 BAFTA Children's Award nominations. The awards don't tell the whole story of the show's quality. The later seasons, which are the best season, but received fewer nominations as the broader animation conversation shifted. But the Emmy win for Season 3 is its own evidence. The Television Academy, in 2012, looked at a cartoon about a raccoon in a coma over an egg challenge and said, yes, this is what television should be. And that was Season 3, The Hinge. The middle, the season where the show found what it was and began to prove it. Everything after Season 3 is built on that proof. Regular show, The Lost Tapes, announced June 12th, 2024 by Warner Brothers Discovery. 2 seasons ordered. J.G. Quintel returning as showrunner. Expected to premiere on Cartoon Network on May 11th, 2026. Mark Hamill confirmed his return as Skips on September 30th, 2024. William Salyers recorded as Rigby. Janie Haddad recorded as Margaret. The working title before the announcement was Regular Show, Lost Tapes, a new chapter. I don't know what the Lost Tapes will be. I don't know if it will maintain the trajectory, if it will be better than what came before, or different, or something that exists in an honorable but lesser relationship to the original 8 seasons. I genuinely don't know, and I'm not going to pretend I do. What I do know is that the original series is complete, that the arc from the power to a regular epic final battle is a finished thing, and that finished thing gets better every season. Whether or not the lost tapes match that trajectory, the original show is already what it is, already complete, already one of the most coherent and improving 8-season arcs in the history of children's animation. The lost tapes will be what they will be. The original show is already extraordinary, and the ordinary is always worth protecting. Good night. For the absolute final time, subscribe. I mean it. Thank you. And one last thing, the thing that I think is the most honest thing I can say about why this video exists and why you're here watching it. You're here because you remember the show meaning something to you, at whatever age you were, in whatever circumstances you were in. There was a time when regular show was the thing you watched, and it landed, and it stayed. And now it's years later, and you're up late, and something brought you back to it. Maybe you rewatched it recently and noticed things you hadn't noticed before. Maybe you've been thinking about it since the lost tapes announcement. Maybe you just miss it in the specific way you miss things that mattered at the right time. The show getting better every season is not just a craft argument. It's an argument about what the show deserves. It deserves to be seen clearly, not through nostalgia, not through the haze of the early seasons are better because that's when I first loved it, but clearly, as the complete thing it is, as 8 seasons of consistent, improving, increasingly honest storytelling about what it costs to become who you need to be. You deserve to see it clearly too, because the version of you that watches the full 8 seasons in order, with patience, but with the willingness to trust that season 5 is building to something even when it's hard going, that version of you gets a different experience than the version that only watches the early seasons and stops. The show gets better every season. The viewing experience gets better every season. And the relationship between you and the show gets better every season, as you accumulate more of the show's history and more of your own, and the two timelines begin to rhyme. That's the last thing. That's what I wanted to say at the end of all of this. The show gets better every season. Watch all 8. Come back to it. Keep coming back to it. It will keep being worth it. And thank you for this night, for all the nights, for caring enough about a cartoon to be here at whatever hour this is, but listening to someone who also cares about it way more than is probably strictly necessary. It's a good thing to care about. The park, the rake, the friend, the ordinary life that turned out to be extraordinary. Good night.